Our assumption at this point. So as soon as we get more information, we'll let you know. We saw Maya earlier. She has been the reporter in Plaquemines Parish from the start and interviewed Billy Nungesser earlier, probably about an hour ago at the EOC. And one of the things that they are really trying to get through right now is the overtopping breaching of the Braithwaite.
Coming in. Again, we're getting over towards the Causeway exit here, the new ramps there. There's the exit ramp to Causeway. And
have you ever seen it that empty?
Look at that. I mean, no cars out there, which is great news. I mean, that means people are heeding the warnings, not getting out. The fear is, of course, if once we get to sunrise here and things start lighting up a little bit, that we may actually see people getting out and about. We don't want that, you know, stay inside, continue to stay sheltered in places, that phrase the mayor used the other day. But, boy, you like to see no traffic out there. That's outstanding.
You know, it's interesting. We mentioned that the mayor did say, by the way, that there are a number of flooded streets in New Orleans. He says the flooding has started. But I mentioned on this ready.nola.gov, not too many flooded streets listed, and that's because they're taking reports from people. So clearly they're not getting as many reports in, which is great. You know, you hate to say that, but it truly is, because it means that folks aren't out on the road, and you know, it's almost, you know, you can tell you it's going to flood in the usual places. But we almost don't want to tell you where it's flooded, because we don't want you out. You don't need to be out. You don't need to know what roads are flooded, because hopefully you don't need to be out unless it's an emergency. And that's the big thing here too, is staying inside and really just, I know you hate this term, Hank, but hunkering down.
That is my phrase that I don't like. John has his, and we all have it.
We've banned that phrase today, I believe.
Hunkering down. But really doing so.
I don't even know what that means, really.
Can hunkering down?
Yeah, hunker.
How does one hunker? We're not sure, but we're glad people are doing it anyway. You know, as we pan around, this really kind of tells the story of the power outages too.
It does.
Because you see just a couple little spots here, there, and beyond where there's still power up, but most of it just dark.
And a lot of these are street lights and stuff, so you're not necessarily seeing a lot of building lights per se. But yeah, I mean, look, obviously I-10 there, you're seeing the north side there, still a little bit of electricity, but look on the left there, the left side up towards the IHOP there and the Brothers gas station, nothing. A couple little lights there as we pan back around, and a few more here towards the Holiday Inn, but
look off in the distance, you don't see much at all.
Not a whole lot, just very few and far between. So there's some pockets. But
here's the question. Now, clearly we won't be able to see it on our camera, which usually we can see the dome from our camera. John mentioned he drove in this morning. He did not hunker down, so to speak, at the station.
John's not a hunker.
I did a partial hunker.
He drove in, and he said the lights on the dome were on.
It was lit gold this morning.
Interesting to see.
Can we pan around to that? So I'm sure we won't be able to see.
I'm sure we won't be able to see.
We'll have to go the other way, whoever's operating that, because we're not going to make it all the way this way.
Yeah.
Well, look at this.
I'm sure we won't see.
There we go. Here we go.
It kind of did my heart good to see that there was one brightly lit
bastion of light, one beacon there.
The rest of the city looked pretty dark. Throughout the central business district, most of the big buildings had lights on at that time. Everything around it, though, was pretty much in darkness. Even on the interstate, there were very few street lights that were operating.
Yeah, let's keep on panning to the right there if we have somebody back. There we go.
There we go. We'll see.
Of course, the camera fighting the wind at this point. It may be a little slower process, but yeah, keep on going. There's the... Again, they were passing the lakeway there. You can barely see that in the distance. I mean,
it's tough. But yeah, I mean, look.
But look, a little pocket of power right there. But then you come closer to I-10, nothing. So it's very, and we mentioned this earlier. The good news is
seawall is going to start being pushed to the North Shore. So if you're up in Madisonville, excuse me, on over towards over in Slidell, Lacombe, your high water is yet to come. High tides are happening from 8 to 12 noon. So we're going to see rising water all morning. And if any water starts to fall, it probably won't be until well later tonight and into tomorrow. So this water that you see now, you're saying, when's it going to go down? It's not. Especially on the North Shore, it's going to really start coming up as the winds go around to the south. The good news, if those of you that can still watch, and I know I've got an email, Mary, she said, I still got power. Jerry just called in Thibodaux, said he just called back. He said power just went out. So I understand that's the way it's going to be today. Power is going to come and go. But if you're listening on the radio, the center now it appears to be waddling slowly westward into Terrebonne Parish. Got a caller from Livingston, Ricky Williford, and he said his pressure has been steady. It was falling all night, and it is now steady. What does that tell me? It tells me the storm's not coming his way. If the storm were coming, and Livingston, by the way, is way up on the North Shore, west of Hammond. So if the storm were coming his way, then he would see a falling barometer. Okay, there's Livingston. You see, there's Ponchatoula, there's Hammond, and there's Livingston. So he's telling me his barometer is not falling, which means that the storm system that's waddling down along the coast, it doesn't appear to be that it's taking a northward jog anytime soon. It's likely to just keep waddling right across lower Terrebonne, coming across Houma, and headed towards Morgan City. And somewhere along the line, it's got to, I'm afraid if it just keeps going west, it's going to get back out over water. And that'll keep the strength of the storm. So I know it's getting tiresome just to see all this band after band come across the city, but you have to understand that this storm is just a slow moving storm, and we're not likely to see any improvement, John and Nancy, for quite some time. This is a morning, this is probably going to be an afternoon where you are going to get tired of being inside, but trust me, you don't want to be out and cause any additional problems for the first responders. And as I mentioned earlier, remember, they have family too. They have kids. They have mothers and fathers. Don't put them at risk because you got bored and wanted to go and have some excitement. Please, just try and follow what's going on. If the storm does start moving, we will see things slowly get better. That's probably not going to happen until overnight and tomorrow. John and Nancy?
I've got a question for you real quick, but Nancy's got an update from St. John Parish before
we're
we
hearing
get
the
to
St. John Parish Utilities Department is shutting off to Laplace to prevent contamination of the entire water system by high water in Lake Pontchartrain. So water towers are being blocked to provide adequate fire protection. Again, the St. John Utilities Department of Water Department is shutting off to Laplace to prevent contamination of the water system there.
You know, the mayor was telling us that about 2/3 to 3/4 of the city is without power. I think we have to recognize that in addition to doing radio, we are probably disproportionately talking to people on the North Shore, in the Laplace area, in some areas where, I'm not saying everybody doesn't have power, but so that, and that, I think that's reflected in some of the feedback. I had a friend here on Facebook a minute ago say, hey, could Bob talk about Ponchatoula? So asking, you shall receive. What are your thoughts on their impacts?
Well, I think what you just said, the North Shore probably has not lost the power that the South Shore has had. The brunt of the storm has hit the South Shore and not the North Shore. And what for those of you on radio, what we have up now is a picture of the radar that's showing the eye slowly waddling, and I mean that, waddle. It's like, it just swaying back and forth as it slowly ekes westward. And on the right-hand side of the screen, we have our Landry seafood camera that's pointed right at the lake and showing that the lake has exceeded its banks and it's coming just right up over the seawall.
So who gets, the future? Obviously, everybody has the threat of training rains. So everybody, eventually, could be in a flash flood situation. The threat would seem to be less on the North Shore than it was relative to the South Shore. But which areas in the future here are going to get into some rains? And is Ponchatoula one of them, or have
Well, let's go over not only the rains, but the wind. What I will say is that the North Shore winds are going to be less than the South Shore. That's a fact. That's a given. We've seen gusts to almost 70 on the South Shore here in the city, much more down towards the coast. The North Shore will not get into those kind of winds unless the storm would change track and start heading north, and it doesn't appear that it's going to do that. So those of you up there may hang on to your power because of that. However, you see these bands coming around the storm. You're going to get into the bands, and that banding does cause some flooding issues, and that's going to affect the North Shore later on today. So having said that, you're not going to get the brunt of the storm. You're going to get some by the way, I'm just reading here. We have the new coordinates. Chris, if you could get up those new coordinates and we'll try and go over them. From the National Hurricane Center, John, center of Issac, what was the term I used? Wobbling. They must have listened. Wobbling inland over southeast Louisiana. So it's talking about near Galliano, Louisiana, 20 miles southeast of Houma, 50 miles south-southwest of New Orleans. Issac has been stationary during the past hour, but a general motion towards the northwest at 6 is expected to resume.
And a lot of that's still over the water.
So let me see what these coordinates, 29.4 I think is what we had, and 90.5 I think is, so they've kept it stationary. They said it, really hasn't moved. A sustained wind of 55 miles per hour with a gust to 70.
Give me those numbers again, 29.4.
29.4 and 90.5.
Those are exactly the 6 o'clock numbers.
Okay.
Right, you're right.
So they're saying it really hasn't moved. It's stalled, and it should start to move slowly towards the northwest this afternoon. So those of you who are looking for immediate relief, not going to happen. This is going to be a long 24 hours.
So about 1 or 2 o'clock or noon or
No.
what time in the afternoon? I'm sure
There's not going to be no relief.
Yeah?
There
Okay.
will be no relief from these winds today.
Okay.
Today. It won't happen and probably till after dark.
We have a couple of things here. For one thing, we want to take a little look above from outer space at this thing, so we'll have that for you in just a bit. And there it is, as a matter of fact, from the International Space Station. I'm not sure what the time frame is on this, but you can see. I mean, can you imagine being in space and looking down at this? And think of how fortunate we are that we're able to see these kinds of images that, 100 years ago, the weather got bad outside. And you kind of thought something was coming.
Mother Nature is very pretty from afar. If you have to be in that, it's not so pretty. But from afar, it is very neat to watch. And remember what a hurricane is. It's a heat engine that takes the heat from the tropics and redistributes it farther northward in latitude so that the Earth's heat balance does not go out of whack. The equator won't get too hot. The poles won't get too cold. That's just what Mother Nature does with these storms.
It's a vent, okay. And we happen to be on the living on the edge of the vent.
And we may want to remind people too that down in Braithwaite and Plaquemines Parish, there was water that overtopped back levees, and a lot of people got water in their homes up to 9 feet. A lot of people still trapped in their homes. We talked to Melanie Martinez, who has an elderly mother and a husband. She's in her attic right now waiting for help, but the weather is so bad and has deteriorated so much that people can't get to them to help. We also hear that the Braithwaite Fire Department, members of that fire department, are on the 2nd floor of their building waiting to be rescued. That's also on Highway 39 in Braithwaite. It's at 7163 Highway 39. It's between Bertrandville Road and Maltese Lane in Braithwaite. And if you're from there, it's near the Assumption Catholic Church, about 2.5 miles from there.
And as daybreak comes into effect here, and hopefully if we get enough of a break in the weather, we'll start to get some images. How many, we say a lot of people, how many people were you hearing from Billy Nungesser earlier that might be down there?
I'm not sure. I know 1,000 people maybe were evacuated, but of that amount, I think maybe hundreds, maybe in Braithwaite. I don't know how many were still there at that time.
We may be talking about a dozen or fewer people in terms of those people who are still there and who are trapped, including 3 in one home in the fire. The only thing we have confirmed, I think there's a former parish councilman.
We're still going to be dealing with lots of rainfall, some pretty gusty winds. Looking at winds overnight tonight, still ranging from 35 to 40 miles per hour. So the potential for some debris in the roadway still remains. The potential for some flying projectiles, that still remains as well. It's only by Thursday, as we get into Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock, Issac will be centered somewhere north of Alexandria in the northern portion of the state, finally starting to lift and move out and becoming less of a problem for us. But for right now, we are definitely in it. So let's take a look at the forecast model. Again, if you can't see this and you're listening to us on the radio, I'm going to try to describe this as best as I can. Basically, what we're looking at is southeastern Louisiana and southern Mississippi. I'm looking at mainly lots of yellows, oranges, and reds, indicating that we are in for some more heavy downpours as Isaac only slowly lifts out of the area. I'm looking at basically a swath of moisture around the 10:30 hour from Washington Parish, wrapping around across, try to draw this picture in your mind if you can, wrapping around across Pearl River County, down toward the south in southern Mississippi, along Hancock and Harrison County, tipping back over the Gulf of Mexico, and then back across lower St. Bernard Parish, and then wrapping around Plaquemines Parish, and then it's still wrapping further around toward I would call it lower Lafourche Parish near Port Fourchon and even Grand Isle. So you're looking at basically a semicircle of moisture that starts in a clock. Let's call this a clock. We'll start at 12 o'clock, basically right over Tangipahoa Parish, and then wraps around 1, 2, 3 o'clock, Mississippi Gulf Coast, and then back to 6 o'clock, lower portions of Lafourche Parish, somewhere around Timberlake Bay. Looking at a swath of moisture from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We're not talking about times now. Again, we're looking at a face of a clock to try to give those of you who can't see us and listen to us on the radio a picture of what's going on. Take-home messages, it's going to be rainy, it's going to be soggy, because what's happening is Isaac continues to tap into the Gulf of Mexico. By 4 o'clock, Isaac only moves ever so slightly toward the northwest. Looks like the center at this point will be situated just to the northwest of Terrebonne Parish. That's around Assumption and Ascension parishes in that area there. But still, with some of the storm hanging offshore, again, think of that clock in your mind from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then moving from 12 to 3 to 6, with 6 still hanging in the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to serve as a tap to continue to draw all that Gulf moisture across the region and keeping us very wet, very windy, and very soggy, promoting again the potential for some localized street flooding, even some widespread street flooding. Those low-lying areas hardly going to get a chance to clear out because the rain will continue. This is the 10:30 p.m. hour. This is for today. Isaac not moving a whole lot, still picking up that Gulf moisture and dragging it from lower Lafourche Parish up across metropolitan New Orleans now, and then back toward the west across now approaching the Baton Rouge area. But still, as we go to 2 o'clock hour, not a whole lot of change from the scenario I just described. If we think of that face of the clock once again, with that 12 o'clock now displaced toward the west, closer to Baton Rouge, with that 3 o'clock point now right around metropolitan New Orleans, and then that 6 o'clock point situated to the south of we'll call it Terrebonne Parish. Still, I'm looking at lots of yellows, reds, and oranges, again indicating in the overnight hours tonight into tomorrow morning, we are going to be dealing with a lot of rainfall. And then at 7 a.m. Thursday morning, again, only a slight shuffle toward the west, still looking at lots of rainfall from Tangipahoa Parish down southward through Terrebonne Parish. Now, for you along the southern coast of Mississippi, lower southern Mississippi, along Hancock County and Harrison County, you're still dealing with a little bit of rainfall, but we're seeing as we move toward the west, Jackson County, by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're seeing the break. That's where we're starting to see some drying. Also, lower Plaquemines Parish, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, we slowly start to dry out certain parts of the viewing area. But Randy, Sulla, the take-home message is to continue to stay vigilant, batten down the hatches, because we're going to spend at least another probably 20 hours until we get Isaac to begin to move out of here.
Yeah, that's what Mayor Mitch Landrieu was telling us, that he was requesting all citizens out there to be extremely patient, because right now the conditions are so bad they can't even get their crews out there unless it's a major emergency situation. So definitely, please, folks, stay indoors and be very, very patient.
Once again, to Lafourche Parish now. Joining us on the phone, Lafourche Parish President Charlotte Randolph. And how has the lower end of your parish been faring, Parish President Randolph?
We just sent in, and again, she was on 23 on the west bank of the parish. She was traveling south on the southern side of Jesuit Bend. And as we've been talking about this morning, one of the hard-hit areas is on the east bank, where there was a mandatory evacuation order from the parish line south to White Ditch, where levees have been overtopped and water now 8 to 10 feet high in people's houses. We've been speaking with Eugene Odo, who's been trapped in his attic. He is not alone. He spoke of at least 4 other families, and we know from following Twitter that there are many others out there who are facing the same type of problem. So the Plaquemines Parish for the last 12 hours has been battered by heavy rains and surge and those southeasterly winds. This is not a river levee, but a back levee that is 8.5 feet tall. Billy Dungesser, the president, yesterday said this levee was going to be topped, and it was topped, but with the speed that Gene Odo said he had never seen before, that the water just rose so fast, he was able to get some baby formula. He's got his wife and Samantha up in the attic. She's about 18 months old, a couple of towels, some clothes, and so they're in the attic. Right. He does not feel the water is rising any higher, so that's good news. He called us to get the news to emergency officials like, hey, we're at 7397 Highway 39. We're not alone. We need help. Right. The problem is help is difficult to come by because of the weather, and it's not going to change anytime soon.
And this is why they tell people to evacuate. This is exactly why they tell people to evacuate, because when you call 911 in a situation like this, if the storm is at this level, they just cannot get to you. So staying means risking it, and there's always a risk to benefit ratio that you have to analyze before you take off. And when you hear, oh, tropical storm, there are still people that don't evacuate for Category 2, even after what the city has been through. So many more people stayed for the storm. So you can't blame, you can't judge at any point during this particular time period. But what we can say is that this storm has taught us that we have got to expand the dialogue of how we judge the storms. It's not just category talk anymore. Category, according to our weather experts who have just been phenomenal throughout this entire time, they only measure wind speed. Categories measure wind speed. They do not take surge into effect. They do not take rainfall numbers into effect. So we're seeing, at this point, 10 inches in St. Bernard and rising quickly at one point. Here we have Gulfport. This is a brand new video from Gulfport. Actually, we had not checked in with Gulfport in a little while. They took a big brunt during Katrina. Huge damage there. Very widespread. They felt very left out during that point because it is a large focus on the New Orleans metro area, but this is very much a part of our viewing community.
What they've been battling this morning have been tornado warnings in both Harrison and Hancock County. I believe those warnings have since expired, but certainly in Harrison and in Hancock, they had tornado warnings. We have spoken to emergency preparedness directors in both areas, in both counties. They say, quite frankly, they don't have any reports of damage. They are weathering the storm as best they can. They do have a lot of people without power, as the rest of this whole Gulf Coast area, but they don't have any reports of damage. Tornado warning does not mean that there is tornado damage, but that the conditions are there, or there could be a tornado right in that area, but we have not had any reports of damage, so that is good news.
And if you see, you're looking at the radar a second ago, you could see how even though the eye is on one side, all the way to the right, look how large that expansion is to the right-hand side of the eye. And we know storms like this already. We know that this is what happens, but we don't always have this much time to focus on exactly what it's doing. It's been hovering for hours now. We had landfall, the first landfall, we should say, at 6:45 p.m. yesterday. And it is still on top of us. It is still directly on top of us. So this is what we're all trying to get through. In this video, can someone tell us what we're looking at here? Traffic cameras.
Traffic camera.
Okay, we're trying to see which roadway this is.
Hard to tell because there's no cars out there. It's actually a good thing. It looks like it has
Chef Mentor.
Chef Mentor Highway, heading out towards in the east. We do know that Billy Nungesser, Plaquemines Parish President, is going to give us a phone update in about 45 minutes. That'll be at 8:15. We also know that citizens on the East Bank right now are performing boat rescues to try to help these people, like Gene Odo and his family, like the others that are trapped over there in their houses in Braithwaite. I'm looking to my left. I see a picture of Braithwaite, and there it is. And there you can see the gas station sign. That's got to be about, as what Mr. Nungesser was talking about, 8 to 10 feet of water. We know of at least 5. We assume many more trapped in their houses. But this is from a back levee overtopping water 8 to 10 feet inside of houses. And some of these houses are, in fact, raised. And so this from an eyewitness viewer. Thank you for that picture, but please, everybody out there, if you're sending us pictures, be very careful, be very safe.
Mm-hmm. And we want to clarify a little bit, Mike, you have such a great grasp of the geography of this particular area. When you say a back levee, which body of water is actually filtering into that?
It's a marshland. It's a marshland. Imagine you're driving down 39 from New Orleans. The Mississippi River levee is going to be on your right. Mm-hmm. And in some, this is not all cases, but and houses would be on your left-hand side. Mm-hmm. And behind these houses is a levee. Behind that levee is a marshland. We are in an area that is surrounded by water, and those southeasterly winds keep pushing that marsh water onto that back levee and pushing and pushing. And the storm was just relentless. And whether it's 60 miles an hour or we've had gusts of over 100 miles an hour in Plaquemines, it is the relentless push of that water, this marshy water that, again, breach over top. That's semantics at this point. The water is where it is, and this was a mandatory evacuation spot that Billy Nungesser said yesterday. We're talking about the back levee you asked about. It's 8.5 feet tall, and they expected storm surge of 9 to 12 feet. So he said yesterday this levee was predicted to be overtopped. Did people predict 8 to 10 feet of water in their houses? No, but they knew it was probably going to be overtopped. We talked to Gene Odo in his attic. He says, you know what? I have some insurance, but this is my home. I felt the best way to protect my stuff was to stay. That's Gene Odo's decision, and Gene Odo can do what he wants. It's a free country. Others will say he made the wrong decision. Others will say, now you're asking others to put their life in harm's way to come get you. This is a circular debate.
Absolutely.
We're not here to decide anything other than to present the news, and it is what it is right now. And the fact of the matter is, it's very tough to get to them. It is the citizens in boats right now that are doing these rescues of people on the East Bank.
That's the most incredible part, because when you hear Billy Nungesser say we can't get to you right now because the conditions are bad, but yet we have gotten reports that these citizens are going to go out in these conditions. We're going to keep you posted on this story for sure. You've heard, you've basically put a person to the story going on in Braithwaite. Gene Odo is the person who was on the phone with us, who was telling us that he was stuck in his attic with his baby girl and his wife. And it was a compelling interview because so many people have been there. 7 years ago today, he was the same voice, not the same person, but the same voice, the same context that we heard from so many people that were stuck at the time. So we're definitely going to keep you posted on what happens with them. We're going to continue our coverage now onto other parishes.
Let's go back to St. John with the water situation they have there with Natalie Rowbottom, with Parish President in St. John the Baptist. And we spoke yesterday. You were concerned about the high lake water pushing to the west in places like Peavine, and now it's impacted your water supply.
Yes, that's a concern for us. It has not affected it, but we're preventing that contamination. The water levels are extremely high out at Lake Pontchartrain, which is where our water system is along Lake Pontchartrain at the Rudock Wells. We do have service crews out there. We did discontinue service only to LaPlace. Water service continues in Reserve, Garyville, Mount Airy, and of course on our West Bank. However, the LaPlace residents have no water at this time, so there's no need to worry about bathing, drinking, or using the water because there is no water. It's not a problem with the system. There's not a break in the line. It's a protective measure. As soon as the water levels are reduced, which we anticipate as the wind levels change, as well as there's another method that they're currently working on, we will restore water to LaPlace. It's a precautionary measure to prevent contamination of the water system in LaPlace. However, that was our concern. The other concern is that 95% of our residents are without power. That was our second concern with a slow-moving storm, that power outages would be expensive. At this point, Energy cannot get out on the roads to start making repairs or to start assessing, but as soon as the winds die down to a level possible for them to do that, they will, and begin working on restoring power. They are staged here in LaPlace, so they're ready and available. However, there's a safety factor involved, and as soon as the winds die down, they will begin making those assessments and repairs. But the critical issue is there's no water to LaPlace. There is water in reserve in the other areas of LaPlace, but it's a preventive measure to prevent contamination of our water system. Our wells are located up and abut Lake Pontchartrain. There's another procedure that they're currently investigating, and as soon as we have new information, I'll share that. And as quickly as possible, we will restore water to our residents of LaPlace.
Natalie, can you say if you guys are going to set up any type of service to the public there where you'll be able to give out water, or do you think it's going to time out appropriately, that by the time the storm calms down and the water recedes, that you'll be able to turn on the water again and you won't need to do that?
Well, we'll definitely have a contingency with regard to providing water. We're in contact with GOCEP's Web EOC to make sure that we do have water. However, at this point, St. John the Baptist Parish is under a curfew, and that curfew was put in place for the safety of our residents. The weather is extremely windy. It's rainy. There are some road closures at this point. I-55 going north is closed due to a tree limb. US 51 going north is underwater. We do have a tree limb on Highway 628, which is West 5th Street, between Dozier Court and Sycamore Loop. Again, that's due to a fallen tree. And DOTV will not be out to remove those road blockages until the wind dies down and it's safe for their employees to come out. Peavine Road is also closed due to high road, but there's not a whole lot of heavy rains, but there's winds and constant rains, and of course that could cause possible flooding. Additionally, with the high tides, the surge coming in, our low-lying areas could be in danger of high water on the streets. So again, we're under a curfew until further notice. That was put in place to prevent our residents from getting into trouble and to make sure that they remain safe. When it's safe for them to be on the roads, we'll lift that curfew, and that would be in conjunction with our police officers. But at this point, it's very difficult to have any of our first responders or anybody out on the roads because of the high wind levels. But our number one concern at this point is making sure our residents know that there's not a problem with the system. It's been shut off to prevent contamination.
6 feet, 18 of which we believe is at that point.
Yeah, I said 26. It's sea level,
right.
Relative to sea level. So it would be nowhere near this is that, for anybody who doesn't see the image or doesn't know what we're talking about, this is the outer wall of the hurricane protection system. This is this giant, massive flood wall that they have built that is part of what seals in all of New Orleans and the east bank of
East Bank of
St. Bernard Parish, and it cuts off there at the parish line. So it's really quite an image for anybody who is watching or listening to us on radio. We are seeing illuminated with headlights, I guess, this stream of water that is flowing down off the top of this levee wall. And then this looks like roadway. I guess there is a gap at the bottom of this thing.
There may be.
So that all of the pressure, they let a little of the water escape in the bottom, and that way it's not pushing all up against the flood wall itself. It's kind of a relief valve.
And from the looks of the wind out there, what we're seeing are winds that are slanted, rain and wind. So the wind could actually be sloshing some of the water over that wall as well. And it's not. We know it's not at the top.
No, I think you're right.
And we see driving rain.
And that's at the height. I mean, it was really hitting it out there at that point. I mean, that wind and rain was pushing it, sheets of sideway rain.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell if there was any kind of overtopping right there. We did see John was saying, there is kind of a little gap up
And
under the flood wall where
so
water.
dark out there.
Oh, pitch black.
And the
It was nothing
barricade
but-
in the middle of the street, and
Blown away. They had to pick up they tried to pick up the barricade a couple of times. It blew away immediately after. So they just sat in their law enforcement vehicles and just sat and kind of monitored it. And a few residents about, I'd say about 500 feet or so behind us, just kind of sitting there, just
Meaning within the protection system.
within the protection system, just sitting there watching,
thinking that they were within the protection
thinking
system.
they're in the protection system. So
These pictures were shot about what time, Evan?
these were shot about 6:30. 6:15, 6:30, because I got back here to the station about 15, 20 minutes ago.
And what were the winds like right there in that area?
We were getting gusts, I would say, up to in excess of 70 miles per hour.
And
67
I
miles
guess
per
it's
hour.
not just the winds, but it's what you get wind-driven waves right there. You've got a really an interesting geography to this thing because you, on the one hand, first of all, how do you put a boat on the other side? How do you get your first responders to the other side of that giant flood wall? And then once you're in a boat, you certainly can't open the thing. So then once you manage to get away over there to get to these folks, you're then dealing with a pool of water and wind-driven waves.
And that's the biggest concern. I was listening to Bob a little bit earlier this morning. He was saying just when 20 mile per hour winds, it's tough to maneuver a boat. So I'd imagine in winds and gusts of excess to 60, 70, 80 miles per hour, if not more, trying to do a search and rescue mission, and they are being held by the Coast Guard, or being told, and trying to get these people out of there could be almost near impossible, if not extremely dangerous for those trying to do this.
And any storm is heightened anxiety for most people in our area, but for folks who live outside these protection systems, I mean, it's like every time you're watching the radar when these storms are coming, you have an inkling that you're going to be in some kind of situation, possibly that your house will be flooded.
Yeah, this was, as we were told, a mandatory evacuation zone. People were asked to leave at that time. And of course, not saying the circumstances with the family, with the mother and her daughter, and that couldn't leave because of some issues with their truck. But certainly scary if you're in the attic and you know that the water's that high, and you know that there could be some breaches in the levee and some overtopping.
I think it's worth noting too that people hear levee and levee failure. Just to repeat again, this is not the hurricane. This is not the Mississippi River levee. At first, they didn't know where the water was coming from, and it's certainly not the massive, newly improved hurricane protection levee for St. Bernard Parish and the rest of the area. This is a glorified speed bump that's about an 8-foot, 9-foot levee that just couldn't take the pressure of the water, and we don't even know that the water came up that high, as much as you were saying failures or breaches in 3 spots, and you know. Melanie Martinez was describing her husband scurrying. You know, you don't have a lot of time in this situation. There were
and him trying to grab on and get into the attic as soon as he could. Yeah, I heard.
You know, our colleague Shelley Brown was describing or talking with this woman, you know, an hour and a half ago, and probably had flashbacks to her dad, who had a very similar experience and was in St. Bernard Parish when the water surprised so many people and came up. That's the thing about it is. Once it's, you know, gets into the garage, yeah, you have time in places, but if you're near one of these levee breaks, and in this case, Breton Sound, or for all intents and purposes, the Gulf of Mexico is suddenly in your neighborhood, it's a dramatic rise in water.
We talked to a former Plaquemines Parish councilman earlier. He said he had in excess of 7 feet of water inside his home.
Yeah, this woman was she was a couple feet off the ground in a home to begin with. And then in the attic, the thought was her husband felt that they had 9 or 10 feet of water in their home, and it was sort of lapping at the ceiling. So, you know, everybody was okay, but obviously a great deal of anxiety, and the water had been coming up, but it had slowed, you know, but as you point out, a very dramatic rise in the water. We feel terrible for these poor folks who did want to get out, and their truck broke down.
So really a lot of tough decisions have to be made that are being made right now.
Talk a little bit more about some of the conditions you drove through on the way to this. You drove down.
We drove down St. Claude Avenue all the way down through St. Bernard Parish, and you have to correct me if my geography's off here, but really the ride back was the worst. I saw just me trying to get this video back here to the station here in Mid-City. I saw at least 3 or 4 trees completely on the ground blocking the roadway, just barely.
The river to the side now, which is why I'm kind of crouching here. You know, if there's any good, seeing it lets up everyone, so if there's any good of us coming out here and braving these winds, is to really demonstrate to folks that don't get hung up on tropical storm or category 1 or category 2 or whatever the weather classifications are. This is tough stuff. This is dangerous. And I'm walking over here because I want to show you, as we walk to the pier itself, there's a concrete barrier that held up a fence here. Concrete barrier knocked down by wind gusts during the night. We were here until 11 o'clock last night. This was standing. We came back this morning. It's on its side. I show you that. Again, this is category 1 to remind folks of how difficult this can be and why you're not going to want to go out in this for quite some time.
Have you been able to drive around, Lester, at all? And can you describe for us just what you've been seeing and noticing in terms of damage, downed power trees and power lines?
You know, we stayed fairly close by. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. We were fairly close by, so only a short drive, but lots of localized intersection flooding, nothing we couldn't get through in an SUV, lots of trees down. I saw just a little while ago, it looks like some structure, some wooden structure that they had on the pier on the other side was down, but haven't seen any major damage here, but you know, likely it'll all reveal itself now that the sun is coming up. I mean, these wind gusts are ferocious, and you know, if something's not nailed down, or even if it's nailed down, chances are it's going to go flying. And you know, I got a lot of tweets from folks, you know, concerned about where we've been putting ourselves. Understand, we've placed ourselves here with the river to our back, where there's less likelihood of any debris coming in our direction, because you know, anything thrown up in the air here will become a missile.
And Lester, you've got a great view of the river at this point. What is the river looking like, and how choppy or even angry does that river look right now?
You know, I'm looking over my shoulder here. Huge white caps. You know, if you knew how to surf, you could probably do it out there. Certainly not encouraging anybody, but that's the kind of waves I'm looking at here as oh my goodness, as I stare out across the river. I mean, huge white caps, but all blowing now in this direction, coming across.
Lester, we really want you to be safe out there. The conditions look just so dangerous out there. You've been through a lot of tropical storm, nor'easters, hurricanes, lots of severe weather. Compare this one to, is it one of the most ferocious ones you've been in?
Well, I mean, we certainly know it can get windier and get tougher. I think it's the length of this one. I guess maybe it's been the luck of the draw, but you know, hurricanes I've covered in the past seem to have blown through quicker. And you know, as you've been tracking it, this thing doesn't want to move. I mean, I think the people of New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana will agree that Issac has already overstayed his welcome. And it's kind of disheartening to know that we're going to be with these winds and this rain for quite a while longer.
Now, Lester, I can't help but notice that there are some sirens that are going off in the background. Any idea as to which direction those are coming from, and maybe who they're coming from, or why they're going off?
Well, actually, I think what you're hearing is the alarm here. I'm looking, I can see a strobe light. It's an alarm here that was triggered at the passenger terminal here at the port. So I think it was just probably, you know, they probably went on generator or some kind of power hit. But it's, I was going to say, it's nothing to be alarmed of, no pun intended, but that's what it is.
Gotcha. All right, Lester Holt joining us live. Please take shelter when you can and try to stay safe, Lester. Thank you for that live report.
All right. Thanks. You got it.
You can just tell how just relentless. He talked about that again, that this is a relentless storm. Randy doesn't want to leave, and it really has overextended its welcome.
I know, and as we were talking to Travers just moments ago, prior to speaking with Lester there, you know, those folks out in Braithwaite right now, suffering something what he is comparing to a Katrina-type disaster for them, with their homes just completely flooded out, 6 to 10 feet of water in many places. You know, our hearts go out to them and to many of the other areas who are taking on water. You know, we've had trees reportedly falling on homes in some cases, trees falling on roadways in many cases, houses just toppling over. Blake Canton did that report this morning where there was that one house on Saratoga Street where it just fell over, or it might have been South Cito Street. It just collapsed, you know, and it's amazing the strength again of this a Category 1 storm, which is why you should never underestimate the power of Mother Nature. Even though this was a Category 1, even some of the other public officials that we did speak to say, you know, while it was a Category 1, it just kind of felt like it was a little bit more than just a 1.
Yeah,
you know?
that's the problem with this, as Lester and everybody else was saying. It's just such a relentless storm, and it's causing more damage than anticipated, but they are well planned. If you get a chance to go online and take another look at that Braithwaite flooding there, Randy, it's just such a sobering sight to see. I'm really hoping and praying that nobody is trapped.
Yeah, if you're watching us on television, there's that site again, as Ella mentioned. It is also online for us there. I know Travers is working on feeding us in some more video at this point, so we can give you a better vantage point. But I just can't help but noticing those power lines that are those poles that are just barely sticking out of the water out there, you know?
And earlier when Travers was out there, that was only like an hour or two ago, he'd said he did notice some water seeping in, and then just a matter of 2 hours, you noticed how much water has collected and the flooding that has taken place since then. He did say it's about more than 10 feet of water out there, and that's just really ominous.
Well, not just that, but I mean, thank goodness for that 20-foot storm wall. That's right, that's helping to protect St. Bernard Parish as well, because no telling where else that water could go, and we are working on trying to figure out exactly what caused that flooding there, because it is very sobering this morning to see that kind of sight. Damon Singleton joins us now with more on what the storm is doing and the impacts that we are seeing across the entire region right now. And again, like we said, Damon.
Can we ask our producers, do we know when this video was shot? Was this yesterday afternoon? Yesterday, okay. So, yeah.
Oh, that was yesterday, okay.
I guarantee it's a very much different scene there. Yeah, you couldn't tell if it was shot just a few minutes ago.
Because it looks like the light that we have out there
it
now,
does,
right?
but that is video from yesterday.
But I think John's right about the winds here. And of course, John Huffman, I always say, is our sort of
the weather intern.
Hurricane intern, as
I was
it
going to
were.
say, you call him the weather intern. Let's be honest.
Let's just make it more tropical.
I've been
system
called worse
intern,
things.
But, you know, the guy's been out right on before with his wind speeds. And keep in mind, we're 150 feet up here. So if we're hearing less of that rumbling sound, which we can still hear right now, but a little bit less, which means, you know, like you said, the wind may be dying down a bit. It's going to be stronger up here for us than it is on ground level. But you look at the radar, we still have the orange band right over us. And
but here's the thing, Hank. It seems to me I'm seeing a higher percentage of green now. And green, of course, is the lower amounts of rain.
Huge change there. Look at St. Bernard Parish right now. You know, almost the entire parish is in that light green. That is a huge change from earlier when we just had this massive, not even yellows, but you know, orange.
Is that center there of circulation hopefully beginning to open up slightly right there in the last couple frames, or am I you know, grasping for straws here? Yeah.
Out to the southwest, it may be.
Well, hopefully
we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, that's because we have a reporter out for us this morning. Ken Erdahl has been doing a great job. He's one of our Tribune reporters, and he's been out in Metairie.
And he's not used to this kind of stuff,
No, he's from out of town. So that's tough, but he's really battled the winds, and I know he battled the power outages last night as well. So let's go live now to Kent in Metairie. Okay, Kent, what do you think about this so far?
Yeah, you know, it's just kind of my first go around with hurricane here this morning, and it's not too bad where we are because we're in this protected area at the Lakeside Club, so that we can see the levee behind us and you know what's coming over the levee, but we're not really feeling it as much as we could be. It's certainly still enough to push me around a little bit, but. In talking to a lot of people, they've been pretty pleased because of the fact that a lot of them here in Metairie have been able to have some power here and there. Certainly they have their generators backing up if they need to, but it's been a pleasant surprise for some of the people here. Of course, street flooding a concern, but as far as the wind and the rain goes, it's just been pretty steady. We're getting another little gust kicking up here, but certainly for everyone in this area of Jefferson Parish, pretty happy actually, considering the fact that it's still got a little ways to go, but so far so good is what I've been hearing.
I'm assuming you're standing in front of a pool there. That the water that we're seeing there is in a swimming pool. Is that correct?
Yeah. Let me give you a look at that because it gives you an idea when those gusts do come up. They can be a little fierce. Now, I'm pretty sure that they put those beach chairs in actually to keep them safe there. They actually put them in the pool so that they wouldn't be blowing around. Yeah, I should have clarified that because we came in here late yesterday and they had already put them in there, and actually I thought that they might be floating on the bottom there. But as we were coming in, there were a couple of signs that looked like they were about ready to give way, so hopefully those don't, because that's kind of those types of things that you just don't want to see blowing around, especially with these wind gusts picking up here and there.
Ken, have we lost Ken? I was going to ask him what his experience was with the winds, because we're sort of getting the notion.
I can tell you that we know that the bayou has risen about 2 feet. That was in about a 90-minute period, according to first responders report that was actually sent to us by Councilmember Chris Roberts here in Jefferson Parish. And we want to show you some raw video that we shot over the last few minutes. And what you'll be seeing there is you'll be seeing some water that is actually just rainfall ponding behind Lafitte Town Hall. We want to be clear, what we see there we believe is rainfall ponding and not a tidal surge, which of course is the big fear here. We also have some video, not sure what order it's in, but you'll see the Bayou Barataria, and the wind has definitely shifted directions coming from the south and blowing that water toward a northerly direction, and that is when the problems could begin, and it's happened many times over the last few years. Once that southern wind happens, or the wind starts coming from the south, the water starts building up in the bayou and overtops the banks. From our vantage point, we did not see the water getting close to the top of the banks near Town Hall, but of course that is the big concern, and officials are watching that very, very closely. Again, Lafitte was under a mandatory evacuation, so we do not think there are many residents at all here. Things have been very quiet throughout the night, but now that day has broken, we've seen some emergency vehicles moving around. There was a large tree in the road that they had to clear out, and so they're just trying to keep tabs on everything as the rain keeps coming down and the wind continues swirling. But again, unfortunately, it seems that the wind direction has shifted, and again, that first responders report said that the water level in Bayou Barataria had risen 2 feet in about 90 minutes. So we're still trying to keep tabs on that situation, and we will be bringing you the very latest updates from Lafitte, Barataria, and we'll try and get information from Crown Point as well. Let's send it back to the desk.
Satchfield, appreciate the update and continue to bring them in. It's kind of it's almost 8 o'clock, and for a lot of people, we were talking daybreak a couple of hours ago, but it's been such a dark.
What were you telling me? I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
Thank you, Scott.
I think we still have Scott.
We're looking at some raw videos sent back, the water coming down Bayou Barataria, where Scott was just talking about, in an area that is prone to it. Good gosh, we've been talking to Tim Kerner for the last couple of days. These are some of these levees. Some of these are filled, they're tubes. They fill them with water, and they've become heavy kind of instant levees. They've been using them for years. St. Charles Parish used them for a while along the lakefront on their side of St. Charles, and so they've been around for quite some time, and they've been using them in this area, ring levees, to try to protect them because they're just so vulnerable. And we've talked to Tim Kerner, we've talked to both Senators Mary Landrieu and David Vitter yesterday that maybe this is the time with the Restore Act money that they will get some type of levee protection, because right now they don't have a lot.
Wasn't this the area where they said that the burrito levees that they had, that they were worried that they would be punctured?
No, that's Grand Isle. That was David Carmadel, and who in fact we have not spoken to this morning. Karen Swinson, I talked to her early this morning, and he said that they were not faring well down there. She did not talk about the burrito levees, but that is. Okay. That was David Carbondale, the mayor of Grand Isle's concern that these burrito levees now, you just saw that orange water tube levee, a circumference of about 3 feet. These burrito levees are probably a circumference of about 10 feet, and they're filled with sand and not water, but they're exposed to the sun. They're exposed to salt water. He was concerned that the integrity of those might have been worn out, and that any kind of rock or wear and tear on it might open them up, and I'm using his words, and that the sand would spill out like sugar. So there are concerns across this area, and I'm sure it's a very humbling, sobering thought this morning for a lot of people to go, wow, it's 8 o'clock and I'm going to be dealing with this tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, and I might not have power for 2 or 3 days, maybe more. It's just, people will have a new respect for a slow-moving Category 1 hurricane.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And we want to check in with a couple of different areas as well. Ashley Roderick has been in Metairie since about, I would say, 2 o'clock this morning, more than likely. She was at Clearview Mall earlier today, and she filed this report.
Driving around Metairie, it's hard to find very much damage until you get here at Veterans in Carrollton. While the wind is absolutely howling, you can see what it's done so far. This power pole has come down here, landed on another one, and pulled lines down. It's pulled the lines across Veterans. Clearly, you can see the lights here are malfunctioning. These lines are also really low down here across the street from the McDonald's, and all of this is still very unstable. You can see it still shaking in the wind. Also in this, those lines are laying in water. Carrollton, both sides of Veterans, has a lot of water in the streets. I don't know if you can see this here, even on the sidewalk. There's a lot of water here, so there's going to be a lot of trouble here whenever this storm stops. This is going to need a lot of work. Clearly, what Issac is doing here in Metairie is starting to form. In Metairie, Ashley Roderick, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
Okay.
All right, thanks to Ashley. Also, again, we've got a lot of people that have come in to help us during this storm from our corporation, BELO, one of them being Jonathan Betts, who's a familiar name because he used to work here at Channel 4 before heading off to Big D in Dallas. He joins us now from Gentilly with the latest there. Jonathan?
Well, it looks like at one point crews were hoping to save this building. Sadly, Issac had other plans. Its strong winds, as they continue to hit us now, pushed it simply over. This was a home that was under construction. Its walls had been shored. They were trying clearly to restore it or keep it intact, but Issac, as I mentioned, had other plans. As an example of the kind of damage we've been seeing around New Orleans, we've been driving across the city this morning, seeing a lot of street flooding, a lot of powerful winds, a lot of down trees, and a lot of down power lines. Fortunately, not a whole lot of people out on the road, and no major damage yet. A lot of people, though, hunkering down, waiting to see what else Issac may deliver later today. In New Orleans, Jonathan Betts, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
Well, we want to make sure that you know we have so many ways of being contacted. You can watch us on the web. You can go onto WWLTV.com.
By this, because the weather will start getting bad once again once Issac starts moving. And here to give us more of an update, Sheriff Jerry Larpenter, tell me first of all, what kind of damage are you seeing? Any damage here in the parish?
Actually, we're not seeing much structure damage. We have been out all night. Our personnel, our heavy equipment personnel have been out all night, made several rescues. The problem that we have now, the worst is yet to come, according to the news media and National Weather Service. I think we're going to see probably the eye wall just starting to hit Terrebonne Parish, apparently the northwest side. And of course, once we go through that, we'll go through partially of the eye, and then we'll be hitting the eastern side of the eye wall, which is the worst side, as we all know. So the worst is yet to come in Terrebonne Parish. We have extended our curfew until further notice, and we're asking the public, the people of Terrebonne Parish, not to get out just because it looks pretty calm right now, because you will be deceived. And of course, once the winds subside and then they get back to hurricane force winds, I understand that possibly we'll have hurricane force winds, gale force winds, maybe 6 to 8, 10 hours after the eye completes Terrebonne Parish. Now, the western side of our parish, we've talked to people in the low-lying areas of the parish and patrol down there, and they have never seen the water level as low as it's been. So that's going to help out if we do have a tidal surge, that once the storm passes us and the winds turn out of the south, that we will have hopefully a large enough reservoir where we won't have inundated flooding along the coastline of Terrebonne Parish. So we're hoping that we pass the storm Again, the only problems we have is power outage and trees, which we're actually removing from our highways using our specialty vehicles that we do remove debris.
All right, and like you were saying, you can't stress this enough. Curfew until further notice. That's also going on in Lafourche Parish, just because maybe the rain might die down, the winds might die down, and it might get pretty calm here soon. Don't go out and look around. I know I had some people texting me this morning asking me if they could go down and check their camps in Dularge, but that's not a good idea.
Oh, absolutely not. You're not going to make it down that far, and we don't expect people to even think about that right now. As long as they have some type of media input coming into their homes, I think they'll know better, and I think the people of Terrebonne Parish have been graciously honored the requests from government law enforcement. I think they will continue to do that. And again, the worst is yet to come in Terrebonne Parish. So we're going to get some extreme winds, and I believe we're going to get a flooding. So we're going to be here. We expect you to just hunker down, stay with us for another 12, 15, 18 hours, whatever it takes. We'll be here. If there's an emergency, like I mentioned last night, we're coming. And that's pretty much what all we can do right now. Hope and pray for the best, not only for Terrebonne Parish, but our parishes to the east. And let me just say this: we all know people up north are going to catch tornadoes, and they're going to catch flash flooding from this hurricane. Hopefully, we didn't lose anybody. We do know that an elderly person died in a nursing home last night, but that was natural causes. So. I do believe that we're going to lose lives in the northern part of the states and other states, and hopefully in South Louisiana we don't have anybody seriously injured or fatality.
We just got to wait and see what the storm does. Thank you so much, Terrebonne Parish Sheriff Jerry Larpenter. I appreciate it. We'll be checking back with you throughout the morning and throughout the day, so you stay safe as well. Now, John, I can tell you, we were driving around as we were driving here from Gray this morning. We got a couple of hours rest in the hotel room, and we came down here. Taking West Main down to Homa to the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office, and it didn't really look too bad. We saw some big branches down of trees, a couple of power lines, the trees had fallen over them, and of course the area around the Southdown Mall, that floods a lot from Bayou Terrebonne. So that area had a lot of standing water, but nothing going into the businesses yet. But of course, if cars go out and drive through that could cause a wake and send some water into those businesses. So again, the message from the sheriff here: don't go out, despite the fact that it could be very calm and even getting more calm in some areas like downtown Homa. Don't go out and drive around in this. Back to you.
Also, Carolyn, when I think of, Dulac and Pointe-aux-Chenes, Montague, some of these communities that have had
to leave the house today and not to go on the road today, didn't go sightseeing or for anything else, because we don't know what those wires are. We don't know if they're energized.
Earlier this morning, you were on a fire at the old LaRuth's restaurant in Gretna. It's now called Braxton's Restaurant. When you left, I know you'd spoken to the fire chief and Davy Crockett. Were they able to put that out?
They were getting it out. The problem was that it was inside the building, and with all the wind and the rain, they were having trouble getting the hoses. You would think with all of this rain we've got, you wonder, if I asked the fire chief, how can a fire burn with a torrential downpour, and he just kind of laughed. But they were literally, the wind was so strong, having trouble getting the hoses to shoot the water inside the building. They did try to get inside the building on foot, bringing hoses with them to try and put the fire out. It was too hot. They had to back out, and they were having a tough time. They were still struggling to finish putting it out, but most of the flames had died down. A lot of it died down when the roof of the old LaRuth's restaurant collapsed into the building. They were very pleased that this fire did not spread to other surrounding houses. The question that remained was, their original call was that the restaurant was in the front of the building, there's an apartment in the back of the building, that they heard there was a person trapped in there. Well, they couldn't get into the building because of the heat. So even when we left, they didn't know if there actually was somebody trapped in that building. We have not gotten another report about whether they found anything out there or not. 4 fire departments. On the West Bank, there are a number of small volunteer fire departments, and they all work together and help each other out. And it was Davy Crockett, their area, and they were calling a number of other departments for help. So it was a big deal over there, and really sad for people who will remember the old LaRuth's restaurant. What a neat place it was, a historic old building in
Gretna that a house that had been turned into a restaurant.
Bill, if you can ask your photographer to zoom out a little bit just so we can hear the storm around you, but just to show exactly where you are, if you don't mind. We see a patrol car behind you as well. Is that pretty normal? Are you seeing JPSO all over the place?
That's the one thing we have seen everywhere. Law enforcement is out enforcing. That is a Jefferson Parish Sheriff's deputy. We are literally 2 blocks from the 17th Street Canal, and that is where the levees broke on the Orleans Parish side. We're on the Jefferson Parish side, and the light's in bad shape here at Carrollton and Veterans because one of the signals has literally fallen off, landed in the intersection. The electric pole here has fallen over sideways. It looks like if the wind kept blowing, it might shift totally and just fall to the ground and pull down all those wires. Amazing, the buildings in this area all seem to have power, so I'm not sure what that serves, but still power right here.
All right, Bill, we appreciate the report. I know you're going to be on the move again, so to give us really just what Isaac is doing out there, and it's not a pretty sight. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, as we talked about, this is from my Facebook page. It went on my Facebook or the WWL Facebook page and just went live TV. And this is the end of Bill Capo's live shot. If you have power to your iPad or whatever, your smartphone, you can stay up to speed with what's going on with Isaac if you lose power. And quite frankly, it is not an if for many people, but when you lose power. You have the mobile app. You've got Twitter. Again, this is on the WWL Facebook page. It'll say watch live TV. You click the button and there's a little bit of a delay, but other than that, it's live television. And so we're all in this together today trying to fight through what is going to be a very long day.
Absolutely. We're actually going to go back out to Maya. Maya has been in Plaquemines Parish for a very long time now, and the conditions there are pretty rough. They're sitting under a huge cell of rainwater at this point. So this is what she filed earlier about the condition of the levees.
We're here in Jesuit Bend right now. We're hearing this very strong wind, still torrential rain. It has been a very, very long 12 hours here in Plaquemines Parish. Take a look. We have a light pole down over here. And this canal began rising overnight. It's actually come up several feet since we've been here. Obviously, we are monitoring the situation on the east bank of Plaquemines Parish in the Braithwaite area, where right now people are trapped. Water has come over the 8-foot levees there. Right now, parish officials are trying to assess how to deal with that situation. We'll keep you posted. Now back to you.
All right, that was Maya from Plaquemines Parish, and also we're going to have another interview with Parish President Billy Nungesser in about 15 minutes. He's extraordinarily busy trying to figure out exactly how to get to the people that need to be rescued, despite the conditions that they are in right now. Quite a few people were assuming that there's more than the 5 that we were contacted about a few hours ago in their homes on Highway 39. So we will definitely ask him about that in just about 15 minutes.
And maybe the closest people to them to help rescue would be his friends in St. Bernard Parish. St. Bernard Parish President Dave Peralta joins us now by telephone. And Mr. Peralta, we're told you are heading towards Plaquemines Parish to try to help some of those on the east bank of Plaquemines?
That's correct. I talked to President Nungesser early this morning, and we're committing some of our assets to help our sister parish. We'll have enough. I'm leaving enough assets in St. Bernard. We're okay here. We've been there once. We're going to start staging down there. As soon as the winds get to a point that we can launch, we're putting assets in the water in the matter of boats to help Billy and his crew out.
Now, people from Louisiana, we've been through this before. We already have reports that citizens have gone out there to try to help these people. Do you know if these people are from St. Bernard, or do you know any information on who's actually showing up?
Well, I have no idea, but we have our first responder units, our fire department, who are trained in this kind of rescue, and myself and Council Chairman McGinnis are en route to that location right now. We're going to start putting our assets in order, and as soon as we possibly can, we're going to put boats in and go wherever we need to go down there.
Unfortunately, therein lies the problem. I mean, it's supposed to stay 40, 50, 60 miles an hour for much of the day. Your first responders and everybody's health and safety, is in this equation. So it's going to be a tough call as to when to put them in.
I I agree with you, sir. But that's why we're going down there. We're going to do it. We're going to get out as soon as we can, and see what we can do. Billy's got a lot of problems, on the West Bank. So again, we've told him we're going to commit assets to the East Bank to help these guys out.
How are you in St. Bernard Parish? What is the status for you guys?
Well, we've got a lot of power loss, obviously. Probably around 10,000 homes is the last count I got from Energy. We're good with the water situation. We got some of the streets have a little water. I haven't heard any reports of water in people's houses. We're working with Levee District 1 to ensure that we're pumping down the large canals, the 20 offset and the 40 offset at this time. They're pretty high. We get trees down like everybody else. We're coordinating our efforts with Sheriff Pullman, St. Bernard Sheriff's Office. We've been working with them since early this morning. He's down in the Blackman's area too, giving our sister parish some assistance.
How soon do you think you'll be able to start contacting people just to make sure that everyone is okay? I know that the weather's got to subside, but do you have other ways, just through the new technology that we've gotten in the last 7 years, to make sure that people are doing all right?
Well, right now, what we've had several people, a large amount of people contact some of my personnel, including my security man who was on loan from the sheriff's office. We have an idea where some of these people are, and we got people, like I said, going to go down there and try to help them, try to get them out. We will not launch, obviously, until I feel it's safe for our personnel. We don't want to have to go rescue the rescuers. That doesn't make any sense. Right. So we're going to make the call, but we're going to be down on site because it's a little bit different. I can't make this call, obviously, from the complex. We're going to be down there.
No, I understand. What are you hearing about surge in the unprotected areas of your parish, Shell Beach, Reggio, Delacroix, places like that? You had surge already yesterday. Where are you guys with that?
Oh, one moment. I'm trying to ascertain that from Councilman McGinnis.
Okay. We understand. Go ahead.
We've got tidal problems down there, but they're on the outside portion of the levee, obviously. They're in the unprotected area, which we were prepared for. That's why, along with the council, I issued the mandatory evacuation order, I don't know, 2 days ago. I'm sorry, I'm losing track of my days right now.
No, we fully understand it. Mr. Peralta, we appreciate your phone call. It's a fluid kind of situation. We get it. When you get down there and you can kind of assess the situation and kind of give us a bird's eye view again, we'd love to hear from you again to get a sense of what visually the situation looks like down there, because we're looking at pictures from Braithwaite right now, and it is water under the eaves of houses, and so certainly being from St. Bernard, you can appreciate what they are going through. So we appreciate your phone call, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, it'll either me or Councilman McGinnis. I'll give him the number. It'll be one of us will call you.
Okay,
thank you.
Sounds great.
Very much.
Thank you all. Okay, be safe.
Thank you.
And as we've been listening to Mr. Peralta, you've seen a couple of pictures, and this is one of them that we've shown you before at the gas station. That's got to be 10, 12, 15 feet up that pole. And then the other one, that is the house. It's hard to ascertain, but this looks like it's coming from the roof of a house where the picture was taken. And that is just, it's an eerie picture. That is an eerie picture, 7 years on August 29th.
Well, we want to also check in with all the other areas. We know that Metairie is doing well, as we just saw, Bill. Pumping stations are doing just fine there. Mayor Mitch Landrieu called about Orleans a while ago and said that everything is going well. And now we have another reporter from our Below family of stations, Jonathan Betts, who used to be here, and he is joining us.
He is in Braithwaite. Jonathan, where are you? What do you see?
I am in Braithwaite, standing on the Mississippi River levee here, looking at a lot of water covering Blackman's Parish. It's probably at least 10 feet deep here. It goes up easily to the eaves of the roofs here. We just saw a rescue. I'm sorry, pull over right there next to that truck. I'm sorry, we're on the river levee driving, negotiating with rescuers here. We just saw a rescue happen just a few minutes ago. It looks like private boat, shrimping boat, went into the neighborhood and picking up people who were in their attics, on their roofs, bring them to the levee, and drop them off. It was, for me, eerily similar to what I saw the lower Ninth Ward exactly at this time, 7 years ago today. I briefly was able to speak with some of them, people that were coming off the boat there. They were families. Some of them had children in their arms, carrying pets out with them, saying that the water came up extremely fast, sent them to their second floor of their home, to their attics, had very little time to grab anything. Many people were still wearing their pajamas, the clothes they slept in, and got up there and were able to be rescued. We have not seen any large rescue operations at this point from any official-looking agency, such as the Coast Guard or Fish and Wildlife or anything like that at this point. There are Plaquemine Sheriff's deputies down here who are helping out, but it looks like people are using their boats to go through the area here, through the parish, pick up people, bring them to the levee, and then people are driving them off the levee on private trucks here, trying to get them to dry land. Because I can tell you right now, I'm not sure what it's like still in the city, but here the hurricane is roaring. It is blowing so strongly. It is difficult to stand, frankly. And the rain is coming down in sheets, making it extremely difficult to see. So I got to hand it to the people that are out there on these boats in these waters, negotiating the power lines and the street signs, trying to get some of these people trapped in their roofs and in their attics.
Jonathan, how did these people find out that these people needed to be rescued in Braithwaite? How did they know to go to that location where they are?
I think they're just going through and looking for anyone on roofs and on their homes.
Okay.
When the family that just got off the boat that we just saw, I asked them briefly, is there anyone else out there? Who else is out there? Is there more rescues that need to be done? They said, no, that's it. I don't know how to quantify that. I don't know how to fully explain or understand what the need is here, but there was certainly, we just pulled up here about 10-15 minutes ago and almost immediately saw a rescue underway.
Jonathan, in your travels, you're going to be talking to people. Just so you know, jot down a Gene Odo, O-D-D-O, Gene Odo. He is someone we spoke to this morning earlier. He was in his attic with his wife and his 18-month-old baby. We let him go at the time some 2 hours ago because we didn't want to burn his battery down, quite frankly, so that he couldn't call a 911 or the police. But we alerted authorities, and people are curious what's happened to Gene Odo and his family. So if you see people being rescued, throw out the name. Everybody down there knows everybody. They're going to know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, I heard that interview that y'all did earlier. I mean, absolutely compelling and heartbreaking, frankly. And I've been trying to listen out for Oderman. I know the people I just spoke with were not affiliated with him. So I have been trying to track him down. I'm hoping that he's already been rescued like the others and is hopefully drying off right now and in a warm place.
Jonathan, when you see the people that are being rescued, what mind frame are they in? Are they crying? Are they saying, "Oh boy, this all over again"? Or what's their state of mind?
They're shell shocked, Lucy. They keep on saying it's just like Katrina. It reminds me of Katrina. I was doing the exact same thing with Katrina as I'm doing now. It's the same feeling. They're absolutely shell shocked. There are no tears. There is no fear. There is no crying. They are simply just trying to get to dry ground and trying to get out of this hurricane path.
So what's their plan? Where are they bringing them? Are they still standing on the levee?
No, they thankfully not. They're a truck pulled up, like an electrician's truck.
Okay.
And they all put them into the back of the truck. It was extremely fast. I couldn't even get a chance to. I asked where are you guys going, but it was so loud they couldn't understand what I was saying, and drove them off the levee. So it's not like it's a like a National Guard truck or anything like that taking the shelters. It looks like these are just neighbors here just doing it on their own.
See, and that's the thing, because we keep hearing that, oh, we have to wait for the weather to get better. We're not going to send officials out in this. We're not going to do this. It's unsafe. From what you're seeing out there, are these people basically just are they really risking their lives to help and save the people who are stuck, or is it really good enough weather to be able to do this attempt, and the officials just don't want the liability yet?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, Lucy. I will say that the weather is awful. It is truly awful because we're kind of elevated on the levee. The wind is just howling over it. As I mentioned earlier, it's difficult to stand. It is risky. I think these men that are out here on these boats are risking their lives, and I think they're doing excellent work and really brave work here to try to help their neighbors in Lower Plaquemines.
So, Jonathan, you're on the levee, kind of, I guess, heading south. The river will be on your right?
Yes, the river is on my right, and Braithwaite is on my left, and the water comes all the way up to probably 7 to 10 feet below the top of the levee here on the Mississippi River side.
Are you there? I mean, are you going to? Are you kind of? This is going to be home camp for you? Or are you continuing to drive down the levee? Do you feel like maybe there's something else you need to go to?
Well, we're staying here for the moment. I'm debating how far south to go on the levee, truthfully. It's a narrow levee. There is a road up here, actually. It's paved in some parts. And so there's ramps that come off the levee down to the ground and into the water here. We're kind of stationed here, just hanging tight. I'm inside the truck, so I can talk to you guys. Just kind of surveying the situation, deciding how far down the levee I want to go here into Lower Plaquemines.
Yeah, we'll definitely be careful.
Be careful. Go. It's we tell this to everybody that takes pictures, and we're looking at some video that got sent in. So we're looking at very high water under the eaves of houses, right up against the levee. So what you're describing on the phone, so we are seeing.
Okay.
So it is.
Yeah, I'm trying to email in some video. It's amazing how, and Lucy and I were talking about this earlier, how 7 years ago I didn't really have smartphones and internet connections on phones. I've been emailing in video, which is what you guys might be seeing.
Yes.
From this here, and photos to kind of give you a live look of what's happening at the moment.
Right.
Well, we appreciate it, and again, if they're do what you can to stay safe, provide us the information, let us know what the latest is. We're supposed to, and we'll let you know, because you're on the East Bank, you're far from it. We're supposed to get an update soon from President Billy Nungesser. We'll pass that along to you to give you a sense of what the rescue's like, who still needs to be rescued, and who doesn't.
Absolutely, and I'll let you know if we start to see a change in the rescuers, frankly, if we start to see the Coast Guard, not the Coast Guard, but a National Guard and things like that show up with boats. We'll definitely let you know as soon as possible.
All right, Jonathan, thank you so much. Be safe, you and your photographer. Be careful out there. We're going to go over to Ashley Rodrigue now, who is in Metairie. Ashley, do we have you live with us?
Yes.
Great. Okay,
I want to talk. Okay, I want to talk to you guys about the water, since you guys have been interested in the flooding situation. In this puddle that I'm standing in, this is mostly what we've been seeing around town. It's bigger puddles like this, not too thick, if you will, or not too, I don't know, deep. Yes, and I'm trying to actually keep the wires out of the water because that's important. But this is what we're mostly seeing around town. But if you take a look at the video we took earlier, that is one of the canals that run along Veterans, and it looks very full. It had serious wave action, and we couldn't actually see the pipes that the water would normally flow through. So those are definitely getting full. We saw an outfall canal connected to that, also really high too. So water is definitely collecting. And I don't know the function of those canals, but the water is collecting, and maybe because they're holding so much, it's keeping it out of the streets and preventing street flooding. Also wanted to let you know the wind still is very much around. We have been listening to and watching this sign, this billboard sign up here for a while. Whenever the wind kicks up, it makes this banging noise, and you're not sure if it's when it's going to peel away. We saw several when we were walking around earlier peeled off and just hanging on barely, just waiting to just float away. This one is holding on strong, but it's definitely making some scary noises whenever the wind picks up like this. So that is the situation at this point here by Clearview Mall in Metairie.
Clearview Mall. That you answered my question. I was asking kind of where you are, and obviously other than police, there's nothing else out there, right?
Well, we drove around earlier as we showed you some of the stuff, and we looked and looked and looked. There's some trees down. There was a very big tree in the middle of Veterans when we were wandering earlier, but for the most part, you've got the trees down. You've got these kind of puddles gathered up on the sides of the streets. You've got, some damage to billboards and the poles that we showed you earlier as well. There wasn't a lot of that, but if this continues, there might be more of that.
Ashley, your video is on air right now. The video you were referencing earlier, it's now on air.
Yes, the video of that
the drainage canal and the.
Yes, the canal. Yes, that is along Veterans. The canal runs through the middle of Veterans and obviously collects all of the water. It's really high. I don't know what it normally looks like, but that is extremely high in my opinion. The waves were also very interesting to see, and the bigger thing for me, I couldn't even see the pipe where the water is supposed to flow through normally. So,
sure,
there's definitely water collecting. At least at this point, it looks like it's collecting in the right spot.
Actually, one of the areas down there in Metairie that definitely collects, if you want to keep searching, I'm sure that's still your assignment for a little bit more of the morning, the West Metairie, Camphor, let's see, what are the other streets down there? David Drive, that whole section. Clearview. Yes, that little section over there, it is infamous for flooding. I'm sure people are wondering, have you made it down there just yet?
I have not, but if that is someplace y'all want us to check out, we can absolutely do that.
If you're going to remain in Metairie and that remains your assignment, then absolutely, that's definitely a hot spot.
David Drive.
Yes, Camphor, David Drive, West Napoleon, West Metairie, that whole little quadrant.
Got it.
All right, Ashley Rodriguez, who's at the Clearview Mall, and so that we've talked to the Corps, all the pumps. Thank you, Ashley. All the pumps have been working. Everything was on schedule. They've had no real issues. She talked about the canals. They are high with the water, but they are big. The pumps, Mayor Landry said, pumps are working. Right. Electricity backup generators, there's no pumps. It's not working because of the power issues. That's from the Corps, and that's from Mayor Landry. So, it's just this is a facet of can't keep up with what's going on from the speed of the rains.
Right. And if you think back, I mean, we're talking probably about 15 years now. This many hours of rain would have definitely already flooded that area more than what we have seen in this particular video that Ashley sent in. Here's some more pictures from our wonderful viewers.
This is from Albert Zara. This is a clear view in West Esplanade, so not enormously far from where Ashley is. She was at Clearview Mall. That picture should end fenced down. You can see the playground in the backyard, but yeah, this is going to be one of those bad fence storms. With this hurricane force winds. This is River Oaks in Slidell. Okay. This is from Robin. And so again, high water there. We've seen this picture. It's been a while that we've seen that one. So we're able now to, at the time they were just kind of pictures. Now we're able to say, okay, River Oaks in Slidell. And thanks to Robin for that. We assume she's inside her house.
Weston Street in Metairie by Dawn Conran. We are seeing, wow, that tree was completely uprooted, completely just lifted the ground right there. Weston Street in Metairie, I'm trying to think where that area is. Well, moving on, Chalmette, blown away shed in Chalmette, submitted by a WWL viewer.
And that tree you were talking about is exactly what we've been talking about for 2 days now, and that is a culprit of saturated ground. This from Slidell damage, that is wind damage clearly, on the fireplace and the soffit and all the. But when a tree like that just topples over and its root ball and all, it's a saturated ground. We saw it, I've seen it in hurricanes, and you see it really more in slow-moving tropical storms.
Absolutely. Let's see, over in Algiers, Lower Coast, we're trying to get these
Michelle DeSalle.
Yeah, that definitely looks like some pretty decent flooding. Like we said, we're trying to get the context of these pictures, trying to see exactly where that may be, but the water is definitely high there.
Burbank Drive and Lake Vista.
Oh yeah.
Another WWL viewer, and there. Once you see a car, you kind of know, okay, you've got issues. Remember, the city is allowing people up onto the neutral ground without any penalties, but it's going to be a car issue in some places, wind issues in others.
And please do not drive quickly down these streets. If you're actually venturing out in this weather for whatever the reason may be, do not. Just make sure that you're not pushing water into people's houses. That is is such an offense at this stage. We've all been here long enough to know that that is a detriment to just the recovery of people after a storm like this.
You're looking at a camera that is atop our building here on North Rampart Street in the French Quarter, and we want to pass along, if you've been tuning in, we've been talking about a President Billy Nungesser press conference coming around the 8:15 mark to update us on the search and rescues happening on the East Bank. That is not going to happen for at least an hour. President Nungesser says right now he needs to concentrate and focus his efforts on the rescue efforts. So we will not be hearing from President Nungesser. We thought at 8:15 that it will not happen for at least an hour. We just talked to Jonathan Betts. They have got a massive situation on the East Bank by overtopped levees, 10 to 15 feet of water in houses, under houses, up to the levees. As soon as Jonathan Betts can bring us more, he will.
Well, it's been a little while since we've talked to Mayor Landrieu, and one of the things that he shared as his concern is that the national media may see the video coming out of Braithwaite and say the New Orleans area, which automatically attaches it to New Orleans.
Sure.
So we're trying to at least keep it very clear on our end, and to the reporters that are coming from all over the country to help us out here, that they also keep a very decided way of saying exactly, just to keep the perspective. Being Labor Day weekend, just a couple days away, a lot of people come into the city to have a long weekend here. We want to get somebody from the airport eventually to discuss what the situation with travel into the city will be. We also have tourists that have decided to stay and see what a Category 1 storm is all about. They figured it was benign enough to sit back and watch, and unfortunately now they've seen that this is a huge rain event. No matter what category it is, categories are not determined by amounts of rainfall or storm surge. They are determined by wind speed. So this is something that we are all being reminded of at this point. We're getting new video in here.
I'm sure when we can get that video, we will bring it to you. I want to, I did piggybacking with what you said, I did a phone interview yesterday with someone from Australia.
Yes.
And he was like, couldn't believe 7 days to the day, the first storm on August 29th, 05, and now this. And I was trying to, it's 7 years ago. We're a different place.
Completely.
Protection-wise, and he kept trying to draw me into this Category 1 at the time. It wasn't even a Category 1. It was a tropical storm.
Sure.
And to this comparison and to how are you guys going to survive? And it's like the perspective of outside this area is so warped sometimes. And we hope that you're right. Our friends from the national media play this in perspective, because what is being flooded right now mostly are areas outside of hurricane protection levee.
Absolutely. We're going to move over to another section of our viewing area, back to Paul Murphy, who has been in Chauvin for probably the last 36 to 48 hours. Paul?
It's been a long time, Lucy. We had to reposition the truck once again because of the way the winds are blowing, or the way we anticipate the winds to be blowing soon. Once we come out of the eye, we are still in the eye of Isaac right now. But take a look at this video just in of Highway 58, LA 58 through Montague. You see all of these power lines laying in the street. These telephone poles have been toppled by the storm. Also, a lot of transformers blown right off the poles themselves, and that's the reason why there's no power down here, and a lot of the lower end of Terrebonne Parish is still without power and could be without power for quite some time. And it's also another reason why, even though we're in the eye right now, it looks calm. It's just halftime basically for Isaac. We're still anticipating the second half of the storm to pass through here. So you shouldn't be driving around on the roads right now. We see a lot of people, unfortunately, doing just that, doing some sightseeing, and they're going to run across a road like LA 58 and maybe get themselves into some trouble, hit a power line or something else in the road. Let me also show you something here in the parking lot where we're set up right now. Right behind us is a car wash, one of those kind of car washes where you put the money in and scrub down your car. You can see how the storm has taken the facade right off the top of a couple of the stalls here. Also, you can see to the right of that a tree that's been just ripped out of the ground because of the force of the winds associated with Isaac. And this is the type of thing that you're going to see across Terrebonne Parish. These types of not structural damage, but roofs and siding and trees, those types of things. And I think when you all add that all up, it's going to be a very, very expensive storm for South Louisiana. And that's an update from Chauvin in Terrebonne Parish. Paul Murphy, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. We want to go back to Jonathan Betts. He is in Braithwaite, where there's a huge flood issue from a back levee overtopping, and he also has video of a rescue. Jonathan, you with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And tell us what you have.
I just want to say, like, minutes after I hung up with you on our last conversation, the sheriff's deputies arrived here. Well, I say deputies, it's really just one or two, with a small fishing boat. And I'm sitting here watching him trying to lower the boat into the water off of the Mississippi River levee. They're fighting the wind and the rain so he can get out on the water and try to help this rescue operation. I sent back a little video of a man taking his small boat out of the water and bringing it to the levee and letting people get off and off onto dry land here. There were families on that boat. What was it like? How high's the water back there?
Tell us what she said, Jonathan. We understand something about the second floor, but what did that lady tell you?
Yeah, I was hearing that for the first time, too. I was trying to hear how clearly you could hear it. She said the water was up to the second floor, and she said after that it was just like Katrina, and then the video stopped. What was it like? But she was up there. Many of her neighbors were trapped as well. They had children with them. One of her, I couldn't tell if it was a family member or a neighbor of hers, got off the boat with a very young child in her arms. She was carrying a cat carrier with her cat inside. Somehow, the door of the cat carrier flew open in the seconds, frankly, between getting off that boat and into the back of a truck, and the cat disappeared.
Oh, no.
Which was so heartbreaking. And I was trying to find the cat. We don't know where the cat went. We looked under the truck. We were looking everywhere, and the cat literally just disappeared. I mean, the wind was blowing so strongly that it actually ripped the cat carrier door off, frankly. So just a very terrifying scene here for a lot of people. They are completely shell-shocked, saying the water came up so quickly in their homes. They quickly ran up into their attics or onto their roofs and waiting for rescue here.
And that's just so heartbreaking, Jonathan, because we know from all the experiences in the past that pets to people are like their extended family, their children. We have video of what you sent in earlier. Can you talk about what the video is of?
Yeah, that's showing Lower Plaquemines Parish and how high the water is. That's being shot from the Mississippi River levee, looking east. The water probably comes up to about 10 to 7 feet within the top of the Mississippi River levee. The water is very, very deep, covering, I see, certainly cars and road signs, and there's some construction equipment which it nearly covers. There's a home just to the right of that. It's hard to see in that video, but the water comes all the way up to the eave of the house. It's a single-story home, and it comes right up to that eave of that home. And just a tremendous amount of water back here in Lower Plaquemines Parish.
Have the people that have been rescued given you an idea of how many others could still be behind?
When I asked them that question, who else is back there, and they said, buddy, there's not a huge number of people that live in this part of Plaquemines Parish. It's hard for me to gauge. I haven't seen another boat arrival yet, frankly. I'm waiting to see another boat show up with more people on them and to ask for an update of kind of what's back there. I did get an answer to one of your earlier questions, which was, how do they know about what's going on? And the answer floored me. I'm not sure if I believe it or not, but the sheriff's deputy who pulled up here and is now trying to get his boat in the water. He told me that he talked with one of the private civilians that was out in his own personal boat trying to rescue people. He put out a call on Facebook, who needs help, and got, the deputy said, 25 to 30 hits from people saying, I'm here, this is my address, I'm stuck on my roof, and was going along on his boat using Facebook to coordinate his rescue operation. Truly astounding to me, especially after what we saw Katrina 7 years ago, when this kind of technology did not exist.
Jonathan, you managed to get his name, I'm assuming, to see if you could see that on his Facebook page?
That is number one on my to-do list, Lucy, is to track down this man. I saw him briefly when he pulled the people off the boat, and then he went back out into the storm and into the water to try to save more people.
That's amazing.
All right, Jonathan, sit tight. I know we're going to want to talk to you throughout the morning, in fact, in just a couple of minutes, but we're joined now on the telephone by Debbie. And Debbie, I don't know your last name, but you have a brother that is also trapped in a house in Braithwaite. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
What can you tell us? Where is he?
He is on Basil Drive. It's between English Turn and the Ferry Store.
Spell it for us, Debbie.
I'm sorry?
Spell the name of the street.
Basil. B as in boy, A, Z as in zebra, I-L-E.
Okay. When was the last time you heard from him?
I just talked to my nephew about 10 minutes ago, and they're in a two-story house. There was my brother counted the steps last time I talked to him. He counted 7 steps down before he got to the second floor where they are. They're there with my cousin and her husband. So it's 5 adults that's in this house waiting to be rescued. Y'all also mentioned Gene Odo. Mm-hmm. He is, I guess, maybe 8 to 10 miles from the Ferry Store. And my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and 2 nephews are in a 3-story house about 2 miles past Gene Odo.
Okay, so they're very close.
Tony and Don Beschel.
And they are waiting also to be rescued? So you have 2 families waiting to be rescued?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you know if they have been able to reach out to authorities so that the authorities know where to find them?
I know my sister-in-law was on Facebook, and Don Beschel is an ex-councilman, so I know he's been in touch with Nungesser.
Okay.
But my brother, I don't know. I don't know if they've been there trying to save cell phone batteries.
So he's the one on Bazile?
Yes, sir.
Do you happen to know the address on Bazile? Because we'll get that to the Plaquemines Parish authorities to give them yet another address of where to go.
My brother's address is 184 Basil Drive. I mean, the policemen know Basil Drive. If they go down Basil Drive, they'll find them. It's in the 2-story house on the left-hand side of Basil. There's a 2-story house at the corner of Basil and the highway. And they're about 3 or 4 houses down in a 2-story. It's the only other 2-story on the street.
Go ahead.
I'm just imagining when you talked to them earlier, we've heard the story this morning already, and I'm assuming it's the same, and that is, we've stayed before, we could not believe how fast the water rose.
Exactly. They never expected it.
Any special conditions that authorities need to know about, Debbie, as far as their health goes, or anything that they should know? Is there a child involved, anything like that?
No, it's 5 adults and I think about 7 dogs.
7 dogs, okay.
Yeah.
And that was something that in the past has been a difficulty of doing these rescues, where they've been able to take the adults and leave the animals behind. Not saying that that's what's going to happen here, but that is a difficulty that we had experienced in the past. Can you tell us how your family was doing mentally? What was their mental state? Are they panicked or are they okay?
They sound calm, but, you know, you could hear it in their voice. They're upset, of course, you know. But mentally, they sounded okay. They're just, you know, nervous and worried and, you know, wanting to get the hell out of there. If anybody could get to them to rescue them.
Well, the rescue attempts are already underway by some citizens and some deputies down there, and they are being planned in the works. And so the best thing that we're doing is trying to get addresses, number of people, where they can go. And so we will pass this information along. And earlier you mentioned as they went to the second floor, he saw 7 steps. Did he ever mention later that he saw less steps, that the water was still rising?
He said it looked like it was steadying out, but the wind and the rain is beating very, very hard down there. And I know it's going to hamper rescue efforts, you know. But, you know, I told them tie sheets to get out the window. They do have a little flat boat. But that's, you know, with the wind and the waves, that's not safe for them. They need something bigger to get them all out.
Have they ever been victims of a hurricane before? Did they lose anything in the past?
They did have water on the street in Katrina. I think he might have had 2 feet of water in his house. But as a child, he's been through Betsy.
Debbie.
He's been through Betsy. And then my house and my mother's house got flooded out in St. Bernard Parish for Katrina.
Wow.
Well, I'm sorry that today's a tough day for you, and we appreciate you even taking the time to talk to us.
I'm just worried about my brother. I need to get him safe.
Well, we'll do everything that we can possibly do. Did they talk about why they were going to go ahead and stay and ride this one out?
You know, it's just like everybody else. They didn't expect it to be this bad, but there should be a lesson to everyone out there. You know, you can't mess with Mother Nature and God. This is an act of God, and, you know, he's going to win every time.
Well, Debbie, we will do everything we can do. It's two families, 184 Basile Drive, and there's the other address where the other family is, which is 2 miles past Gene Odo's house. You don't know that address, but basically it's 2 miles past Highway 39. Just keep going for a couple of miles, and that'll be another family.
That's Odo, and then there's a huge 3-story house. Everybody down there knows these people's names. You know, I mean, it's
Don Beshel, right?
Beshel.
In Beshel, that's right.
Beshel, B-E-S-H-E-L, Don and Joni Beshel. And Gene Odo has lived down there all his life, and so has Don and Joni.
Well, we're going to stay in touch with you, Debbie. We do have your contact information, correct?
Yes, you do.
All right, ma'am. All the best to you. We will definitely stay in touch, and we wish your family all the luck in the world.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Right, take care.
Bye.
Well, I know as we're saying the information, we have producers and executive producers and 50 people in our newsroom who are writing down 184 Basile Drive and Don and Joni Beshel. So we will get that information to Billy Nungesser and Jonathan Betts as well. If you were just joining us, and it's kind of a weird, you know, it's Wednesday, but it's not really a Wednesday. No. There's no school, there's no work, nobody slept.
It's a storm
Who knows
day.
who's waking up or who went to bed at all. So if you're just joining us, we were hoping to hear from Billy Nungesser about 8:15, but because he is embedded with this rescue effort of what is not, the more we learn, the more we know it is not 2, 5, 7, 8. The more we learn, the more we feel it is dozens of people that have to be rescued. And so that is the situation there in Plaquemines Parish, and we will update you this as soon as we get the smallest tidbit of information.
That's by far the most dramatic place that we've seen the damage. There are many other locations that we are on top of. Scott Satchfield has been in Lafitte since the beginning of the storm hitting, and we want to see exactly what he filed earlier.
And we're here
here on the Barataria side of Bayou Barataria. You can see the wind and rain still very much a factor as this storm continues hovering around our area. And take a look at Bayou Barataria. As you can see, very, very rough waters on the bayou right now. And the water is now flowing toward the north, and that is bad news. That is what so many folks here have been concerned about, the water moving north, and that's when the tidal surge could become a concern. And while this area was under a mandatory evacuation, some folks did stay, and we are actually standing on a boat right now, and a family has kind of hunkered down on this boat. Right now, it's Ronnie Dufresne. We want to talk to you, sir. Tell us, how have things gone through the night?
Things going fine for me. I don't know about you guys. So, I mean, this is what I do for a living, you know. So.
What are the concerns? I know that once the wind starts pushing in this direction, that's when things can get a little bit dicey.
Well, it's just a high water. We got about, going by my dock, we got about 3.5 more foot for it to come in before it reaches critical levels in the city.
What have you seen with your property in past storms?
Well, we sat right here for Katrina. I rode this boat every storm for the last 32 years. This is my home for the storm. Most of the time, police chiefs, for Katrina, the police chief rode out with me. I'm one of the responders. We sandbag and do this thing, so I'm always here till the last minute. This is the first time the family stood with me because it wasn't supposed to be that bad.
So therefore, you said you've ridden out many storms, so you know the lay of the land here, and of course the lay of the bayou. What are your concerns and thoughts about what you're seeing and what might happen?
I'm concerned that it's just sitting here spinning, and now we're on the wrong side. I mean, earlier in the night, the boat was on the bottom because it blew all the water out. We were just sitting here, and now it's barreling back in. You know, it came up about since about 3:30 this morning. It came up about 3.5 foot.
And finally, you know, the other first responders have been out. They've been sandbagging for the past few days, putting up those tiger tubes. But at a certain point, even the mayor has said there's not a whole lot they can do.
Yeah, well, you know, I was there yesterday sandbagging because I live right down the street from the city hall, and you know, when it showed up, we all came on the boat because to me this is the safest place. You know, it's built for the weather. It's surrounded by steel. You know, we got power, lights, you know, everything, all the convenience of home.
All right, well, thank you very much, sir. There you had Ronnie Dufresne. They've been riding this storm out on this very large boat, and things do feel sturdy on the boat. But one more time, take a look at Bayou Barataria as the wind is really pushing that water toward the north from Barataria Bay, and again, there are over 100,000 sandbags in place, tiger tubes in place, and folks here are certainly hoping that the tidal surge does not push the water over the banks. For now, reporting from Barataria, Scott Satchfield, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Scott.
Now we want to look at some of the pictures that our viewers have been submitting. Norm's Daiquiri Shop in Thibodaux. Completely lost what I'm assuming is the backside of their business, submitted by a WWL viewer. Which area is that, Mike? Do you recognize which street that was on?
No, and from Thibodaux? No, I don't. Well, what is the name of the shopping center?
Del Rienzi?
I don't know.
Okay. Moving on, Slidell damage. Jessica Gillio, thank you so much for submitting that.
Yeah, I'm afraid carports and metal sheds and any kind of those buildings are going to take a pounding in this kind of storm.
And La Rose, Louisiana by Larry Schwest. Those are some of the most vulnerable structures that you could possibly live in. And we're going to see so much of that. So many people facing the same situation. Well, there we go. That's the first picture that we have of Eden Niles in that section of Slidell taking in water. Trying to get perspective there, seeing exactly how high that is. It looks to be like from one backyard to another.
Yeah, there's canals. There'll be canals miles in between a lot of these houses in the Eden Isles. I'm trying to think, we were talking to Pat Brister, St. Tammany Parish president. That wasn't today, but it was yesterday. And Eden Isles was a concern of hers and how it would be able to handle some of the flooding.
Right. Lacombe damage, yep, trees on top. Our own Doug Mouton, poor guy, posted his picture of his house with a tree on top. Definitely some damage there. We'll probably see many of this scenarios. Back to the shot of Thibodaux. So that's what we have so far. Please keep them coming. You do such a great service to the people who are not here, that have evacuated, that are wondering what this area looks like. Just make sure you stay safe taking these pictures and keep them rolling in.
And we are getting, it's eyewitness@wwltv.com. I want to read an email, a text I got from someone who works here but is not working. She's on maternity leave, and it's from people again that are concerned in Braithwaite. And she says, I'm just going to kind of read it, and it's, hey, it's Aaron. Lee's uncle and aunt are stuck on the levee in Braithwaite. We're watching Lucy B reporting on the people on there, but is there a way to get the names of the people and what the status is and how they're going to be rescued, or what happens to them after they're rescued? Is there any way to get any info? We don't want to tie up any cell phone battery usage. Marilyn and Alan DeGracias. And that's the tough part. Right now, there's just not a lot of way to do it. I mean, it's word of mouth. It's Jonathan Betts standing on a levee going, what is your name? What is your name? Boat comes in, boat goes out. So eventually there will be, and when we initially started hearing this, there were people on the ferry landing that got initially rescued, that went to the ferry landing. So there is some coordinated efforts here. It is not chaotic that the people haven't been rescued and have gone some places, but names, that kind of stuff, that will come. But you're very smart in one thing. It is about cell phone battery now. Let the people who need to be rescued save their cell phones to call 911. And
one of the things that happened from the time that the first text that we sent Billy Nungesser at 4:50, I think it's what it was, 4:45 in the morning, is the first report that we got of someone that needed rescuing. And he started to answer our calls at that time and give us phone interviews as to what was going on. Once everyone realized that it went from, a few people that contacted us to, oh boy, there could be dozens out there, that's when he canceled his interview and said, I need to at least have 1 solid hour to coordinate this rescue effort. Private citizens with their own boats beat the officials to the punch. And was that smart? Who knows? We're not here to make a call on that, just to report it. But we know that that's what stopped the officials from going out there and saying the weather just isn't safe yet for us to be able to make the attempt. Private citizens got there anyway. They risked it, and those are the first people that started to rescue others from the rooftops. We have so much experience in this, and of course, everyone is going to make the eerie correlation. It's where our psyche is right now. This is a very different storm, though, just with a very similar scenario. So, of course, those things are going to give us chills when we see it. Bear with us. We are going to get you all the information as soon as we get it as to where these people end up after they have been picked up. Just bear with us. We will get that for you.
You are looking at a live picture atop our building here at North Rampart Street in the French Quarter, and it is almost 9 o'clock in the morning. Looks like it's about 6 o'clock in the morning by that picture. So we are in for a long day. You saw the radar a bit ago. It actually, quite frankly, and that was just showing you real tight of what is Lafitte and what Scott Satsfield is going through. And at least it was green, and we haven't seen a whole lot of green, and green is the lighter bit of rain. I'm not saying we're anywhere close to being out of this, because we're not. And I do want to report one thing. There's the yellows and the reds, which I knew I would see. That Entergy is now reporting 500,000 people. 500,000 people statewide are without power right now. That does not include Clico, which handles some of the North Shore and other parts of the state, but 500,000 Entergy customers without power. We're expecting winds upwards of 50 and 40 miles an hour throughout the day into the evening with Laura Bucktel. So with each passing minute, the news doesn't get any better.
No, and I'm hearing from some of my meteorologist friends in Baton Rouge who are following this as well, and they say trees are down in some spots there, and they haven't even really seen much of the storm yet. Some of the outer bands moving in. So as the storm moves north and west, areas like Baton Rouge areas you're going to start seeing power outages. Lafayette and to the northwest of the city, Florida parishes, and those areas kind of north and west of the lake, we'll start seeing those power outages as well.
Okay.
So as we take a look at what's going on right now, just give you a current update. Let's give you the latest coordinates, and this coming in at 9 a.m. So we are getting hourly updates now. Not expecting a lot of change, although one good thing, slight good thing, but we'll take whatever we can get. Winds now down to 75 miles per hour. Pressure is coming up a little bit, 972. Movement to the northwest at 6. After stalling a couple of times this morning, which is unfortunately typical of systems that are kind of skirting along the coast, we are beginning to see that northwesterly movement at about 6. And we are starting to see it move, in fact, a little closer to Houma and kind of away from the area of southeastern Louisiana, kind of pulling more toward south central Louisiana, but still very heavy rain in several bands. You can see them kind of lining up. One band here, one band back towards Slidell, another band around Pascagoula and Mobile, and that's going to be the threat for the winds and the rain, mostly on the eastern side, areas like New Orleans, down through Lower Plaquemines Parish. We're seeing that eye move through Galliano toward Houma. So if you're watching in Houma, you're going to see that eye closer to you, headed off toward Morgan City. We still have flash flood warnings in effect until 9:45 for Metro New Orleans. Stay put. Do not get out on the roads. There will likely be some street flooding. No need to investigate. I'm telling you right now, there's some street flooding, so just stay put till this storm moves on through. Down around Grand Isle, another heavy band of rain moving in there. Strong gusty winds wrapping back around over toward Morgan City. Highway 90 getting the wet weather right now. Up around the city, we're seeing very heavy bands included with those gusty winds. We're seeing rain chances, rain downpours all around the city. That's going to be with us for hours now. This is not a quick event. We're talking about hours. And even down in Braithwaite, this is an area that we've been focusing on this morning. They're still looking at very heavy rain. I don't see a break for Braithwaite for the next several hours. Back to the west, Thibodaux, over to Raceland, you're also seeing the rain bands, and even north of the lake, beginning to get a little heavier into Washington Parish, Tangipahoa Parish, and over toward Amite, Hammond. You're going to see these strong gusty winds continue to push on in. Mississippi Gulf Coast, just to update you as well, seeing those heavy winds. Tornado watch in effect until 4 p.m. We're going to see some isolated tornadoes today. Flash flood watch is in effect through tomorrow morning for that heavy rainfall. And look at these wind gusts. For the past few minutes, we've been seeing winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour around the region. So it's going to continue to stay on the breezy side all across southeastern Louisiana for the next several hours. So 58-mile-an-hour winds in Baton Rouge, likely going to see some wind gusts there. 60 miles an hour down toward Boothville, including areas around Braithwaite. That's why we're seeing the difficulty with the rescues going on over there. Mike and Lucy, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you so much. We want to move on to a very important interview, especially with the amount of people that are without power, the number of people, I should say, without power.
This is Charles Rice with Entergy. Charles, the last number we got was at 500,000 statewide Entergy customers without power. Is that accurate?
Yep, that is accurate. It's about 500,000 statewide, with about 156,000 of those customers in New Orleans, and about 163,000 in Jefferson. Those are our two hardest hit parishes right now.
How long is this going to take, Charles?
If you're talking about restoration efforts,
yes.
I really can't give you a timetable. What I can tell you is, as soon as the weather allows, our scouts will go out to assess the damage. Then once we assess the damage, we'll implement our restoration plan. And the way that's going to work is, first we will bring up our generating plant. Then from there, we'll bring up our transmission lines. From our transmission lines, we'll go to our substations. From there, we go to our critical care areas, such as hospitals, police stations, fire stations, things of that nature, and then we'll tackle the biggest outages first.
Are you hearing like like East Jefferson Hospital, West Jefferson Hospital? Do you know if all the kind of the urgent care places and hospitals are okay? I know they got backups, but are they in good shape?
As far as we know, they are in good shape. We haven't received any contact from any of those hospitals. So based upon the lack of contact, I would assume that if they are off the grid, that their backup generators are working properly.
Mr. Rice, we got to get going. We have Billy Nungesser on the line. We're going to come back to you. So sorry about this. Mr. Nungesser, what can you tell us about the situation in Braithwaite?
Because right now, Billy Nungesser, parish president here in Plaquemines Parish, is about to start a news conference to update all the media on the situation. It'll be a few seconds, but obviously we've been following the situation on the east bank of Plaquemines Parish, where water has overtopped some levees there, flooding several homes. Right now, parish president Nungesser is getting ready to give that update. He is getting some last-minute information. He is now joining the media. There's a lot of media here, as you can imagine. A lot of people are paying a lot of attention to this story. We're going to turn it over to the parish president right now. Thanks.
I'm waiting for Nungesser to come onto the phone. We can barely hear him. Maya, if you are still listening to us, we cannot hear Billy Nungesser. If you can repeat whatever he is saying until we get that audio issue worked out, that's the only way we'll be able to hear what he's saying. All right, we apologize to our viewing audience. We are definitely going to fix this audio situation, and whether it's Maya basically reporting what he has just said in the press conference, we will get that worked out and let you know exactly what is going on down there in Braithwaite.
Yeah, this is a tough situation. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of wind and rain ourselves as a television station. That's Maya basically holding up her phone, trying to pick up the press conference, and may have hit a button of some kind. I'm not sure why because we were hearing her fine. So as soon as we can get some type of word to Maya that we're not hearing her and we can get that straightened out, we will let you know. I'm going to kind of check Twitter because I bet somewhere along the way this press conference is being followed by Twitter to give us any latest update from.
Maya, are you there? Maya?
Yes. This President Billy Nungesser, stand by.
Maya, we cannot hear President Nungesser. If you can somehow either give him the phone or however we can work this out.
Security, Parish President, St. Bernard, the Sheriff of St. Bernard, and all those folks who are there standing ready as we get light, as the wind dies down a little bit, hopefully, and not to jeopardize their lives, to go out and rescue more people. We have over 25 people that have called into our fire department that are in their attic, on their roof, waiting to be rescued. We'll begin those rescues as soon as the fire department and officials that are assisting with this, probably are excited about doing the safe block before the chambers out there like get back to our nose. Several other boats off the boat and are out to rescue. I saw this particular fight. It did not evacuate. No one saw this storm. I myself, doesn't matter about damage to home. To give you an idea, I have more damage to this storm than I did to the tree. And I rode out the tree at my home. The water piled up areas of the east bank of Plaquemines Parish that we used to brag about because we never got water. The Perez property in Woodlawn, where the school was built, the highest flower in the state, rose up from this water. The little guys that did the front of the tree, to make every effort to let the world be. And we'll still process. We're not on the woods yet. We're looking at the new models because the storm is going back. What the Colorado model number? We're looking at the effects, the collapse. People have on their way. We assess the storm through top. Cascade, mountain off. No steps. Model. What do you see? As soon as we have our own through the mountain, out to the lake, 1 6 boat. West southwest, back on the storm is morning.
Yeah, we talk about the Great Wall and have done that little nickname for the storm surge barrier, but what you guys call the Great Wall is that giant levee wall or a flood wall that they have built that connects to the river levee and protects St. Bernard Parish, and you guys are just, I guess somebody's got to be outside the line, but you're just outside the line, which has got to be enormously frustrating. And you believe that's causing part of your problem?
Well, yeah, if you look at a map and the levee that we're talking about stretches from Braithwaite Park, which is on the St. Bernard Parish line, all the way down to an area in Plaquemines called the White Stitch. And that area is just a big funnel to the Gulf. And the levee system that we have back there is not as high as the river system or either the neighboring parishes. And the wind and direction from the east it just funnels that in. And like Billy Nungesser said last storm, I was one of the people out there putting sandbags on that levee and trying to help out as much as I could. But it's just like fighting something that you can't win.
Well, you're seeing boats around. You said, right? There's some people in boats that you can see.
Well, yeah, they had a few local people that passed, down the highway here on boats, checking for people and go and see if they could find anybody that they can help, in a state of an emergency, that they need any help.
So they know that you're there.
They did have a levee authority make it through on top of the levee. He asked, the people here if they want to get out, that they could drive the levee out to St. Bernard Parish, and there is a road that goes over the levee into St. Bernard that they can get through, with the gates even being closed at St. Bernard Parish.
Is that what you're going to try to do?
I will, in a short period of time. There is some things that I have to get out of my house still before I leave.
You have your whole family with you? Is it just you and a wife, or?
No, man. Me and my oldest son that went through Katrina. We had chose to stay, and like I said, we knew that the levee was a high point in ground that would at least be safe there.
And this is really premature because I know you're trying to deal with just getting safe right now, and your house is flooded out. Are you going to stay there after all this is over?
As far as rebuild or anything like that?
Yes.
That is a hard call. It all depends on policies, insurances, and things like that. We're all fully covered. You know what I mean? I guess 99.9% of all people that went through Katrina, have their flood insurance and and homeowners insurance. So that would be a hard call, but it's in the back of the mind. I'm thinking about it.
I've talked to some Braithwaite residents, and many of these are very, very nice homes in that area. I've talked to people who want to stay there. It's home, and it's a draw. But I've also heard some people say, "Give us a levee or buy us out, please."
See, now that is something that would be, a great idea. You know what I mean? If a parish government can't do anything for us, to give us any more height on that levee, and federal funding won't come around, you know what I mean? It's gotten to the point where we're the forgotten part of our parish. That's what, most people here say. The East Bank doesn't get as much as the West Bank.
Well, Dean, I'll give this to you. You've kept your head. You seem very calm here, sitting. For anybody who's just tuning in, this is Dean Alfonso, who is a resident of the Braithwaite area and the Scarsdale area of the East Bank of Plaquemines Parish. The water started coming up when what they call the back levee, which are not the Mississippi River levees, but the levees on the back side of their communities, were breached, and it seems, or overtopped, and perhaps breached in several locations. We heard up to 3. They had a matter of minutes to get out of the home and up onto the Mississippi River levee, and you're pretty calm to be going through this. This is a natural disaster for you.
Yeah, like I mentioned, what I mean. Going through Katrina was a big lesson in material things can be replaced, but life can't. So that's the biggest thing. And my heart goes out to a lot of people that are still trapped and didn't get out. I hope they're safe. I hope they made good decisions. Some safe decisions, and had a way out of their homes. And I worry about the other people that are still here though.
Yeah, and Dean, I'm not sure, but you probably parked your car up on that levee to keep it safe and high. Is that what happened, sort of like parking up on the neutral ground before everything started?
Yeah, most residents, that's the highest, ground. I imagine Mississippi River levee is somewhere like, at least 20-something feet. So that's the highest ground. And like I said, there is a chance to get out on that levee if we had to, which we didn't choose to. We waited to see what was going to go on.
How far are you from the levee?
They do have some refineries that you have to go through, and the gates wasn't open yet, and they had just opened that so people can drive on the levee to get out.
All right. Well, our best to you. If your situation deteriorates for any reason, let us know if we can help. But again, for anybody concerned about you, you believe that you can just drive to St. Bernard Parish along the levee and get out after you get some things in your house.
That's correct. And if anybody else is listening that, they can stay on the levee and drive to St. Bernard Parish, the authorities, levee authorities, had passed and mentioned that you can drive out. So if you're stuck on a levee and you want to get out, you can pretty much take your time and drive out to St. Bernard.
Well, Dean, thank you so much for sharing your story. You stay safe in your car up on that levee, and hopefully you can make it out safely. And again, like John said, give us a call if there's anything else we need to know.
We will. I appreciate y'all for having me.
No, thank you very much, and we appreciate your time. Because
all right,
you see the image at first, and you think, oh, this man's in terrible, terrible peril, but he's gotten up on the levee, and after he gets some things out of his house, he's going to calmly drive a couple of miles to St. Bernard Parish, up the river levee, and get out.
Wow. Well, we're going to look at some more viewer pictures that they sent in. This is in the 9th Ward that we're about to see now. A down tree on St. Claude Avenue in the lower 9. Wow, that's a huge, huge oak tree we're looking at. And it is propped up against this orange house. The roots are exposed. So something has picked up this huge oak tree. And you never know what it might have been, whether it was just the winds or maybe a mini tornado. You don't know in these conditions.
But, when you see an oak tree, there were certainly some of the hard-hit areas along the Mississippi Gulf Coast in Katrina where the only natural things still standing were the oak trees.
Right.
All of the other trees were scattered like splinters, but you had these giant oaks which were stripped bare of trees. They were bald for a short period of time. So when you start getting an oak tree pulled out, that's something. And here's a scene from Shauna Cortez in Thibodaux. Thibodaux experiencing some of the early winds, but not what it will experience. The eye of the storm, by the way, has been stalled about 20 miles south of Houma, essentially barely moving over the course of the last few hours. So you have not got the biggest brunt of this your way just yet.
Liz Reyes is with Billy Nungesser on the phone.
And standing right here with him, he is bringing us up to date on the situation unfolding here in Plaquemines Parish. So let me just cozy up here to Billy so he can explain, because with the gusty winds out there, having difficulties trying to get video immediately to you. So, Billy, can you tell our viewers exactly what the situation is right now in terms of trying to rescue all of those people where the levee was topped on the east side?
We're coordinating efforts through GOSAP and the governor's office and Kevin Davis with the St. Bernard Sheriff's Office and the parish president, St. Bernard, who has graciously offered their support. And we are moving assets at the floodgate in St. Bernard. So as soon as these winds die down enough so they can safely go out and rescue the people. We do have a few local heroes that have been out there since before light, rescuing individuals. One lady off a roof, one baby, and our 2 pump operators who saw the water coming over the levee, quickly went down the steps as they're instructed to do, and got in their vehicle to exit the levee. They got less than 500 feet away when the water engulfed their vehicle, and they were stranded. And Jesse Schaefer, a local resident, risked his own life, went out there and rescued those 2 parish employees. So we've got a lot of heroes out there working, and a lot of assets ready to deploy as soon as it's safe.
And guys, I could tell you that those two pump workers, I saw them earlier, then they had to rush off, and they said the water came in so quickly, as you just heard from Billy. Billy, can you explain, give us some sort of numbers, because the area, especially on the east side, that Braithwaite over the levee, the top, is outside of the federal protection system. How many people do you believe are stranded?
Well, we don't know. We had a mandatory evacuation. I think we've got names of 28 people upstairs. The list continues to grow of people calling in. I'm sure there's some people, we heard of some people in attics that may be trapped without communication cells. Cell calls are very hard to accept and make with these high winds. So we think it's going to be north of the 20-plus people that have called in. We have over 2,000 people on the East Bank. We believe most of them got out when we asked them to. You said you're also concerned with this system sitting over us. What's your next concern now? Well, what we're doing is, because, this thing has blown all the projections out the park, we are working with Kevin Davis and GOSEP, the Corps of Engineers, and the National Weather Service to reevaluate this storm, its movement, its speed, and as it moves, what is it going to do to the West Bank levees of Plaquemines Parish? Those back levees that range from 8.5 feet down to 5 feet. We have a mandatory evacuation in the south end. The north end was voluntary. We're going to look at those projections, when they're going to start going up, when they're going to peak, and when they're going to go back down. As soon as we have that information, we're going to share it with you, and we may have to do some other flood fighting or some other evacuations. We're not sure at this point, but things have changed so much since the projections came out, and we had a 5 to 8 foot recommendation on the West Bank. The East Bank, it was way more than what they projected. There was 5 to 8 feet of water coming over that 8 foot levee. That would mean a 15 to 16 foot storm surge, not 11 foot, as previously was in the model. So we're not taking anything for chance. We're going to refigure and calculate everything, and we will take the necessary steps to protect the homes and people for the rest of the parish. Okay, and John and Nancy, you're still with us? Y'all can still hear us?
Yes, we can.
Let me ask Billy about, Katrina, as you both recall, a lot of heroes emerged out of that catastrophe. You heard him mention this person who's out there rescuing, and that's because emergency officials initially are not. You've lost us?
No, I'm sorry, Liz. Go ahead. Excuse me.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to have Billy tell you about this individual, Jesse, who's really emerging as a hero here. He's out there right now trying to rescue people.
Yes, we told him don't risk your own life, and he didn't even hear us. Jesse Schaefer went out there, and there's others. He's got a couple other buddies with him, and I don't have their names, and they're heroes as well. And we just know of another gentleman that launched his boat and told everyone, get out the way, he's going out there. That's the kind of people we have here in Plaquemines Parish and in Louisiana. We help our neighbors, and they're out there risking their life to rescue people.
Well, John and Nancy, that's pretty much the update from here. If there's anything else you'd like to get from Billy Nungesser while he's here, please let me know.
We'd like to, Liz, but thank you so much. We have to go to Bob for a tornado warning.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Well, gang, we're under tornado watch, so it's not too unusual that we're going to see these warnings. And I remember what I said. Let's go to radar while I talk, and it gives folks an idea as to what is happening. Those of you listening on radio, I'm showing not a satellite, a radar picture of the storm that is stalled down towards the home area. That's not where the tornado warnings are. The tornado warnings are out for areas well away from where the storm is. Now, this newest warning is for East Central Washington Parish. So let me focus on the North Shore. We have flood warnings on the South Shore, but it's these red, you see these red polygons that are issued. These are fast-moving feeder band rain squalls that are coming on in. So almost as quickly as they get the warning out, the thing is by. Let me read you some of the stuff that the Weather Service is talking about. East Central Washington Parish, northeastern Hancock County, and Pearl River County in Mississippi. So what happens with these things, they come flying so fast that, listen to their description here. The National Weather Service meteorologists detected a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. Listen to this, moving northwest at 70. Well, how you can't react. You just have to be ready that we do have some issues outside of where the center is. You know, we've been focusing on the center, but look at these squalls. These are the things that we have to pay attention to. One of them is over the city right now. You see that over the city? That band of rain is prompting flood warnings for all of the city because the pumps just can't keep up if that just sits there. And on the North Shore, these squalls, even though they're far removed from the center, are quite capable of producing tornadoes. All the way, look at this, almost to Pascagoula in Mobile, between Gulfport and Pascagoula. There's squalls. So we don't want you to think that, geez, there's not any problems except down towards home and whatnot. We're all in this for the duration. And the view from outside, the water keeps getting higher and higher. So what I'm going to do, this is the first daylight views I've got, John and Nancy, of this thing. And I think hopefully I'll get my telestrator to work here. Oh, please do. Oh, it does. Here's this band. You see it right here? You can see the brighter cloud tops. These are the bands that have all the thunderstorms. Now, in between doesn't mean it's not raining, but the worst bands are the brighter cloud tops right there. And so that's what's coming over us right now. Kind of a neat thing, though. We are seeing the cloud tops warm. And you see the part over land that's over land? This area here over land is weakening. There's still a small part that's over the water. You see, that's why this section is getting brighter, because it's still over water. We've got to get this thing farther over land, otherwise it's just not gonna weaken. And we'll be getting a new advisory, so don't worry about those coordinates. Here's the thing about, look at this goofy track that has essentially moved back a little to the north. The Weather Service, the Hurricane Center, remember, this is their best guess. They think this is gonna go more northwest away from us, but it's a slow process. And I know I've got you asked about the steering, John? Not you, but a viewer. There is an upper ridge that is moving eastward. So the northward motion really right now looks like it's blocked. What will happen as the ridge slides a little farther eastward, it may allow this thing to start going westward around the ridge and go up across Louisiana like that. Otherwise, if you look around the system right now, there's no steering. There's nothing to move it. And so essentially, that is why it is stalled out. So any questions, gang? I'm trying to be as positive as I can, but I am frustrated by the lack of motion.
As we all are. Thanks so much, Bob Breck. We've been following the story all day long of the rescues that have been necessary in the community of Braithwaite because of the breaking of not the Mississippi River levee, but a levee behind, or a back levee, as they call it, behind the neighborhood. Shelley Brown is following that story. Well, we don't have that yet, but we also have an update on something happening in Tangipahoa Parish, where the Tangipahoa Parish EOC has received a warning about a group of barges in the South Pass of Manchac that are now being held by a single line. If those barges break loose, we understand the parish telling us that there is the potential to damage the railroad, the U.S. Highway 51, which runs there, or that's also along the elevated stretch of I-55, those bridges in Manchac. So the public is urged to use extreme caution until the barges can be secured there. The barge owner, we understand, is en route to the scene. The operator, they're telling us, will not dispatch tugboats to secure the barges due to the weather conditions. Again, Tangipahoa Parish EOC has a warning that a group of barges in the South Pass of Manchac is being held now by a single line. And there was a situation last night on the Mississippi River where some barges, one barge broke loose.
And a barge broke loose and crashed into 3 crew boats. We understand that one of those boats sank, one was damaged, the crew abandoned ship. Nobody was hurt, but that gives you an indication of just how dangerous these loose barges can be. Oftentimes you're worried that it's going to crash into some flood wall or into some levee. So this is a situation, and that's why it's kind of an urgent situation there.
No, by all means. We spoke with earlier today with a gentleman who was in Braithwaite in a boat tied up to his house. as the water came up in Braithwaite. There have been, the good news is, although they haven't gotten to everybody, our reporters have been on the scene, and we understand that there have been some more people rescued, or at least we think more. We knew there were 3 earlier today. And Shelley Brown has been following that story, and here's a report she filed a short while ago.
Tell me what just happened.
The lady saying that everyone in Braithwaite has had catastrophic flooding from their point of view. It has flooded the entire community of Braithwaite just inside the east bank of Plaquemines Parish from St. Bernard.
And she said never in her whole life had she seen flooding like this, and she got out by boat, like a lot of people. We'll be getting more of those rescues.
Right. This is an area of enormous frustration for these folks. I will tell you that the residents say that they had some core modeling that had been done that suggested, and I get 2 sides to the story. One, again, this is the St. Bernard flood wall, that giant, nearly 30 feet flood wall that has been built to protect St. Bernard Parish and the entire east bank of the metropolitan area from that point of view. These folks are just outside it, and they believe that it's basically formed a V with 2 sides of the V being the Mississippi River and the levee, and then the flood wall, and all that water is being pushed up in that area. They say, the residents, that the Corps told them it wouldn't be that much water. I asked the Colonel about that, Colonel Ed Fleming, a few months ago, and I must confess I never followed up, and I just, offhanded question, he wasn't aware of what the modeling said, but we do need to follow up on that to see what they were told.
Shelley Brown is on the phone now, and she just talked to those people who had been rescued from Braithwaite. Shelley, give us an indication of what you're seeing and hearing and the motion there.
All right, John and Nancy, we are, I don't know if you remember where I was yesterday, Highway 39, which is considered, a lot of people in St. Bernard Parish know it as St. Bernard Highway. Right before you hit the Plaquemines Parish line, so we're talking about the east bank of the Mississippi, there's a big flood wall. The Carnarvon Canal is right before that, and I pointed that out yesterday, that the flood wall was closed, and that if anybody wanted to get to the other side, they'd have to get permission to go over, get their things, and come back from the sheriff's office. We've seen that Carnarvon Canal, where a lot of fishermen brought their boats up from Delacroix for safe harbor. That is kind of spilling over onto Highway 39. And then when you go up onto the Mississippi River levee and you look over that flood wall to Braithwaite, it looks like Katrina all over again. It looks like those images of floodwaters. I mean, it's extremely deep. Tommy, how deep do you think the water is there? Maybe 9 or 10 feet? I'm just guessing. My photographer, Tommy Adams, just got back from that area, trying to walk up the levee in the winds of this hurricane. I guess it's still a hurricane, Isaac. It feels like hurricane strength winds, and the gusts are they just beat up against you. You have to kind of walk sideways to get up to the top of the levee. And we've seen a number of National Guards people pulling up, and as volunteers, people with the sheriff's office, from St. Bernard, from Plaquemines, other agencies, I'm not sure everybody who's out here, but somehow they're rescuing these people by boat, bringing them to the levee, and they're walking. I just got some video of a woman and another young man with their dogs, 3 dogs, 1 big one and 2 small ones, and you could just see it looks like they've been to hell and back from the looks in their faces. And, but they're out of this, and they're being loaded up into these military vehicles. I'm not really sure where they're going to take them. That video that I'm talking about just loaded into the Fox 8 folder. So if y'all want to see, if y'all can turn that around so we can show that. It's about a couple of minutes long. But we've been seeing people here and there being rescued. I don't know if my video is going to do it justice. I've been trying to get up there to get close enough to the water to take some video with my phone, but the problem is the rain and the wind is coming down so hard, it's soaking the phone, and every time I try to turn the camera on, it just gets stuck on me. So I am going to try again. I've got my life vest on because, the wind is pushing so hard. I don't want to slip and fall into this area. But yeah, just a really terrible situation. You heard from Cheryl Hicks, who was the woman that I was able to interview as she came over the levee, and she says she's never seen this in Plaquemines before, and she has lived here on the east bank of the Mississippi in Plaquemines her entire life. And she feels that ever since they put this flood wall up, that has put them in jeopardy. Obviously, it's protecting Lower St. Bernard Parish, and we could see a little bit of water coming underneath that wall. But yeah, they are outside this area where these people are being rescued from, outside the federal levee protection system, and they are seeing a lot of water. Any idea if Melanie Martinez, the lady who was trapped in the attic with her mother, any idea if she's been rescued?
No, we don't know yet. We need to check on that, maybe give her a call. We hate to keep using her cell phone.
Right. Well, I've been looking for someone that, 3 people, because I know she's there with her husband and her 74-year-old mother. But, and that's the people, young people, they can handle this. Sometimes it's hard for them, but somebody older, 74 years old on dialysis, I can just imagine what kind of a struggle and a challenge that is for that family to get out of the attic and to get to safety. I'm going to try here in a minute, as soon as I get off the phone, to get back up there with my camera. Tommy was able to get some video with his, but the water, it looks like the river on the other side of the levee. Wow. It's really deep, and if you didn't have a 2-story house, the attic and I guess your roof is the only place you had to go. But it's just been a struggle to try to walk up there with the winds and the rain. The winds are really rocking our SUV right now. I don't know if you can hear the rain. It's coming down pretty good, but it's coming down sideways.
Shelley Brown with really, it's probably very dramatic out there, and especially mixed in with the people's emotions after they lose everything they've got. They've never seen anything like this, so they figured they were safe to stay.
Exactly, and the situation with Melanie Martinez, the lady in the attic with her elderly mother, she said she wasn't able to, her truck broke down, and so she felt like she was just going to stay. I don't know, a lot of these people, the 2 people that I talked to who were rescued, obviously they didn't think it was going to be this bad, and I don't think Plaquemines Parish folks ever thought it was going to be this bad. They knew there was potential for something, and they called for the mandatory evacuation. But we've seen national media out here from some of the networks, a number of law enforcement agencies, the Louisiana National Guard. They are really assisting in all of this. I saw them carrying down, I don't know if it was a young person or an older person, but they were carrying them down the levee to put them into one of these vehicles. So as far as I could tell, it looks like everyone they've rescued is okay, but I'm sure they're very emotional at this time. This is kind of bringing back a lot of memories. I wasn't here for Katrina, but my family was, and, I'm sure this is exactly what they went through when they rode out the storm in this area.
Yeah.
All right, Shelley Brown, we'll keep that life vest on and stay safe.
All right, John and Nancy, thanks. I'll be in touch.
You have to get married next year, so, we want you with us. All right.
We talked. Thank you so much, Shelley. We talked about the water rising in St. Tammany Parish in Indian Village, and Rob Masson is there.
A pretty dire situation here at Indian Village and Primo. Indian Village subdivision pretty much inundated right now. Dozens of homes going underwater as this water kind of pushes back from the West Pearl River, from what we understand. So we know a little bit more about how it works back here is Joe Malone, who has a can back there. And Joe, is that what's going on? The Pearl is basically backing up and flooding.
Yeah, basically that's how you got water coming out of Lake Bowman, Lake Montgomery, Lake Catherine, West Pearl, pushing all the water in here. It's never done this before, but apparently from all the levee work and everything, water seems to be piling up in here. That's our take on it. Like I said, it's never done it before. Even Gustav and Ike, when it came through, it never got this high.
I'm looking at a truck that's about 3 feet off the ground that just got in that neighborhood. That's about the only thing that can get in and out.
Yes, sir. That's going to be about about what it's going to take, because I did talk to a neighbor that's back there. He's got about 3 foot of water in his house back there. Of course, he's right on the bank of the river, but apparently a lot of people are possibly stuck back there because, like I say, the water never got up like this. And I know people can't drive out. There's been a lot of people waiting in and out, trying to get out of there. So I don't know. It don't look good. If we got a lot of water coming, it's going to get bad.
Joe, the wind is blowing out of the east here, basically, right now. I mean, what do you think is going to happen when it shifts from to the south?
It's been blowing more like out of the south now. It seems to have turned in the last couple of hours. It was blowing north, but it's blowing in a different direction now. It might be more of a, southeast wind. It has changed direction.
How bad do you think it's going to get, Joe?
I hope it don't get any worse. If it gets up 3 more foot, it's going to be at my store here. But I hope, that another foot or so and the thing moves on out and we can dodge the bullet.
Some kind of owns a shell station here at Indian Village Road in Primo that's become sort of a depot as people try and get in and out of Indian Village. Some people are checking on family and friends. We saw some guy frantically leaving in a big Ryder truck just a short while ago saying we all ought to get out of here because he's worried that this is going to get a whole lot higher. So the situation a little bit dire here on Primo at Indian Village Road as the storm continues to push in this direction, John and Nancy.
All right, thanks so much. And Rob, you are, Indian Village is off 190, isn't it? Sort of kind of north of the Wrigley's, if people want to think of it that way?
Exactly, John. And this road extends all the way to the West Pearl River, and it looks like a lot of this is backing up from the Pearl River that's being, pushed on from the southeast at this point with the wind shifting direction.
And boy, I don't know what the wind will be like when it does shift to the south. We don't have much steering on this thing at the moment. So certainly the last thing they would want to happen, it seems to me, would be for this thing to, once the winds do shift, for it to stall again or move so slowly that it had all the effect of stalling, because it'll just pile water into those areas.
And John, we haven't made our way down there, but I'm told that the water is crossing 190 a little bit to the east of where we are right now. Joe, what do you know about that?
About a mile south there before you get to Highway 90 or the Ship Highway down there. It is across the road there. And them past, we got a couple big trees on the line down there. I've not seen Kevin here before earlier running everybody. We get coming out back there now. There is water across the road.
John, similar to the information you got from the Fort Pike fire guy a little while ago, I mean, there's just water all over Highway 90 and on both sides of the lake at this point. So the Gulf of Mexico definitely creeping into St. Tammany Parish.
And I think that's the best way to put it. Thanks so much, Rob Masson, live tonight, this morning, just outside Slidell, where they are feeling, without the winds being in the worst position from their point of view, they're already seeing the water coming up. And be careful out there, Rob, because that water does come up on 190. I can tell you from personal experience, in a hurry, even in these events that aren't Katrina type.
Well, officials with the southeast Louisiana
told us that the way the wind was blowing it was good because it was blowing it away off the bayou, away from the city. But now that the winds have changed, or that the position, I'm sure our meteorologist will tell you more about that, is now the wind is starting to change a little bit and it's starting to blow the water from the bayou up onto people's properties and such. They feel like what they've done is the best they can do, and they talked about how resilient they are because they dealt with it in 05 and then in 08 and then in 2010, and now they're dealing with it again. And we're going to have some video here, and we're going to have some pictures here coming up. We shot some interviews with people down there because we kind of made our way back from the West Bank, through the West Bank Expressway, stopping and shooting things every step of the way in Gretna. And then we talked to Councilman Chris Roberts again in Gretna. But yeah, the biggest thing that I can't get over is that 7 years to the day, it feels exactly the same, like we're doing it all over again. You just hope that it passes and it gets through. I heard the mayor's press conference on the way here about how the federal levee system is working, as Mayor it is supposed to, which is the most important thing. Because I remember, we thought we had weathered the storm during Katrina, and then when you heard the levees had broke, then you realized how horrific things were.
Now, Fletcher, I know that you said that you were filing a series of reports on your way here. We're going to check out one of these reports and talk to you right after that. So you at home, or if you're listening to us on the radio, take a listen to the report that Fletcher just filed for us.
We're down here on the west bank of Jefferson Parish. Jean Lafitte, the Haskell baskets lining the bayou here are in a good position because leaders tell us that right now you can see the bayou, the wind is pushing the water away and away from the town of Jean Lafitte. But what they're worried about is when they get the back end of the storm is that the winds are going to change and this water is going to be pushed up along the Haskell baskets and towards Lafitte Town Hall and where the majority of their homes are. So we're going to continue to monitor the situation here. But right now, the flooding, and it is very minimal here in Lafitte, is because of rainfall. And there is not a lot of flooding in the town of Jean Lafitte. The big concern for them, what the mayor has told us and what councilmen have told us, is that on the backside of the storm, they're worried about all of this water coming up when the winds change and pushing against these Haskell baskets. They say the rough part for them could be a day after the storm passes through or the tail end of the storm when the wind changes and all the direction of this water is now headed towards Lafitte instead of away. They said the good thing, though, is the storm winds are pushing the water away right now. So therefore, it's a good thing right now, but they're worried tomorrow, late tonight, when the winds change and they get the tail end and the back end of those bands and the winds change, what's going to happen. Again, we're here in Lafitte, and we'll, of course, keep you posted.
Wow.
Okay, so have you noticed the flood levels rising since
A little
the water
bit,
rising
yeah,
since?
and that's they said. They said that it was going about an inch an hour is what they told us over there. And really the flooding was from the rainfall, obviously. And they said they're going to continue to monitor it. They felt like they did monitor it. They felt like they did the best they could with the Haskell baskets and the sandbags. And Mayor Kerner, bless his heart, is running around there. He hardly slept last night. We talked to him last night, and then Councilman Roberts came down. And this is a guy who's very prideful of his area and is making sure that anybody who decided to stay, because they have some big, beautiful homes over there, and they wanted to protect their property, are safe. And if the floodwaters do get there, they're okay. They said that they feel like the worst of it could be when that waterway starts to rise a little bit. So they feel like, according to the people in Lafitte and the officials down there in Crown Point, they feel like they always get it a little later than, maybe Grand Isle, obviously, which is a barrier island. So they said that they feel like they're doing okay now, but historically they've been late when it comes to flooding.
Well,
and
it's
so
not
they want
over
to,
yet. Yeah,
right,
and
obviously.
it's not over yet.
And on that note, you prefaced all of this by saying they've dealt with this for Katrina, for just rainfalls, Gustav, for a little bit of everything. So how frustrating is it for those individuals who do live there, the residents that live there, to constantly have to go through this and not to have the storm protection that they need, even though that we've known that they needed protection for 25 years now, probably even longer than that.
Right. That's one of the things they talked about, is getting the protection that they need, and that getting it, whether it be state or federal money, to protect Lafitte. They talked about how much better they are in Harvey and in parts of the West Bank, where this is the first time they've truly tested out the things that the Corps of Engineers put in place there. But they feel like they do need some better flood protection. In a lot of these low-lying areas feel that way. And Chris Roberts and some of the people there said that hopefully that will be coming, whether it be through the state or the federal level, to get the protection they need. But again, when we left Lafitte, we were able to drive out, which was a good sign. There were some flooding on the roadways, but we were able to drive out. I would definitely not hit the expressway if I were anyone right now, because the winds were starting to pick up, and we thought about not trying to cross it. And if we wouldn't have had an escort, I don't think I would have done it on my own. So definitely the wind you can feel picking up as you're driving on an elevated ramp like the expressway and then crossing the Crescent City connection. But again, when we left Lafitte, the floodwater was minimal, but they said that they feel like the true test will be tonight and early into tomorrow morning.
How badly was the vehicle shaking?
It was shaking pretty good, I'll say that. We were in a big SUV and we had an escort. And again, without that escort, I don't know if I'd have felt comfortable doing it myself. So anyone who's on the West Bank of Jefferson Parish right now, I definitely would advise. And we didn't see any cars, I'll say that. We saw only law enforcement vehicles vehicles. It definitely seems like people are heeding the advice of law enforcement. Nobody's playing tourists. Nobody's out taking pictures. Nobody's doing anything foolish. The only cars we saw were the ones with lights and the one escorting us.
Which is really good because, you know, I've been getting DOTD updates throughout the morning, and Earhart Expressway closed right now at Dickory because of some down power lines there. We've got down trees along Highway 190 on the North Shore near Highway 90, somewhere where we saw Heath Allen a little earlier. That's blocking traffic. Also, a Highway 433 near I-10, also on the North Shore, blocking traffic because of down trees. And Highway 21 closed at Highway 1082, also on the North Shore because of trees. So that's definitely a big problem because it's not just the wind shaking your car. We've seen some pictures this morning of trees falling on vehicles, so you definitely don't want to be one of those individuals. Fletcher, you also mentioned that you went to some other spots besides Lafitte. What else are you seeing besides
We saw a lot. That was the thing we talked about with Chris Roberts, is that he says that in Jefferson Parish, inside flood protection, he's the councilman at large with Mr. Lagasse. Lagasse is handling the East Bank, Chris is handling the West Bank, so we spent a lot of time with Chris being on the West Bank, and he says they feel like, knock on wood, that the levee protection, the flood protection that is in Jefferson Parish, people that live inside flood protected areas, that it's doing what it's supposed to do. And everything right now, I think like the mayor, he reiterated what the mayor said, that they feel like everything is working and is turning out fine. He said the biggest thing is that they've had a lot of trees uprooted because the ground was so saturated from all the rain we've had here recently. And we did see in Old Gretna, right by the courthouse, a beautiful old tree that had just collapsed and been completely uprooted and fallen on a house. So we did notice that. We did notice a lot of trees that had been uprooted. In his assessment was that it's because the ground is so saturated and wet, and then with the winds that came through. So that was the thing that jumped out at me. Street signs. We saw the sign for Newton Street in Old Gretna. It had blown onto the expressway and was just spinning on the expressway. And so
like the Newton Street
the
sign
Newton Street
was
sign,
on
like the
the
street sign had
expressway?
blown up onto the expressway.
Wow.
Yeah. So we just saw trees, mostly trees, and a few power lines that had been snapped. Once we got up from Lafitte back to Barataria, coming towards the expressway, there wasn't any flooding we saw. It was mostly, again, just uprooted trees
Did
and
you
such.
see any damages to buildings or anything like that?
Some siding off of roofs, to be honest with you. There were some roofs that we saw that had siding, or some buildings that had siding. We saw some of the siding that was ripped off of the buildings. Obviously, the billboards, as you drive on the expressway, all the billboards, I think all the advertisements had been mostly ripped down from them. But that was it. That was most of what we saw. Trees down was the biggest thing that jumped out at me.
There are some folks who can't watch us, so they're listening to us on the radio. Can you just describe for us so we have a visualization of just how messy it is out there with the debris all over the place?
Yeah, I'll say this, not like Katrina. I remember going out immediately after Katrina, and even like with Randy after Gustav when we went to the Industrial Canal. I would say that for where we went, and this is just one limited area, I'm sure our other reporters can give you better assessments, but going from Lafitte back to WDSU, Barataria, the expressway, we stopped in Gretna and did some more hits there. Just trees down, but no streets blocked. I mean, we could go underneath the expressway, we could go over on top of the expressway. So it
I think
wasn't.
one of the craziest things we saw were just like barges that were loose, and then
yeah, I mean that was the big thing during Gustav.
Yeah.
I remember there was a barge loose, and that was the big thing in the same area where the Ninth Ward was on the Industrial Canal. But I haven't personally seen anything like that. They did a good job, and I think that's one of the things that the politicians have told us is that they continue to learn, they continue to know what to do and how to do it better. And the thing in Lafitte is just, are they going to be able to handle all the water if this thing continues to sit on top of us? Because they feel like they've done a good job. I remember Mayor Kerner last night told us that when we wake up, there could be a foot of water. Well, there was only a few inches of water. So he feels like they've done a good job. It's just how long can you, hold the rope, so to say, until this thing moves out. And we'll see. But again, it wasn't a jarring amount of trees down, street signs. There was absolutely debris, but it wasn't something that made me feel like I was back in Katrina again.
Yeah. This is only where you were.
Right, where I was,
Conditions
though.
are
Right.
different.
Yeah, everywhere.
Depending.
Sure.
All right. Well, Fletcher, we might come back to you in just a moment,
sure.
but we
Hang
do
on
have
with
the
us.
president of the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority West on the phone for us, Susan McClay. And Susan, how has our flood protection really held up throughout all this? I know a lot of it was we were looking at these levees thinking, okay, this is going to be their trial run in a lot of cases.
Yes, indeed, it has been, and I am happy to say so far so good. This is truly a historic and momentous day for the West Bank. I think it's fairly well known that our system was approved after Betsy, nearly 50 years ago, and literally it has just been this hurricane season where we can declare it functionally complete. They're in the process of closing our main line of defense, which is the Western Closure Complex gates out in the WCC Intergulf, the Intercoastal Canal, and everything's holding up really well. We're thrilled and we're pleased with the closing of the gates. Fairly soon, the big pump station will probably also start operating, and we're just, crossing our fingers that all will go as planned, and so far it has been.
Now, Ms. McClay, explain for folks, what does that mean? You are going to be closing that Western Closure Complex, but explain to people who maybe aren't familiar with what that means, what you guys are actually going to be doing, and what purpose that serves.
Okay. The Western Closure Complex is a 225-foot sector gate, and it meets right at the confluence of the Algiers and Harvey Canals, so right below where those two canals meet in the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway. Once this big gate is closed off, and it's a simple matter of pressing a button, so it's fairly easy to close. And actually, the Corps of Engineers is closing it because it's still under their care at this time. But once that closes off, the vast majority of the populated areas of the West Bank, of the metropolitan West Bank area of New Orleans, will be protected. All of Gretna, Harvey, Algiers, all the most of West Wego. It's literally protecting over 3/4 of the most populated areas of the West Bank.
Now, this storm, because it's just lingering and sitting out there, is that a concern for you? Because we don't know what it's going to do next, and it is like a leech just latching on here, and the effects of it may linger well after today and tomorrow.
Yeah, that is definitely a concern, and of course, it's still not really safe to get out and do serious inspections. Although we do have some crews out doing some minimal work to as long as it's safe for them. But obviously, once the storm becomes safe, we'll be out really thoroughly inspecting. But so far, everything appears to be holding exactly as planned, and we're thrilled on the West Bank. This is literally a momentous day for us because finally, nearly 50 years later, we see our system complete. I often tell people during Katrina, while the East Bank had levees to fail, the West Bank had huge gaping holes, and those holes are now all effectively closed and to a very high standard.
So y'all don't have any weak links anymore on any of your levees or your gates there?
Yeah, not really. There were two very small construction gaps out at the out in kind of in the area where Plaquemines Parish, Highway 23 down that way. That actually closes off our system, and then on the west end we have a small construction gap kind of near the St. Charles Jefferson Parish line, and those were thoroughly closed off with interim measures yesterday. So we're good by next hurricane season. Those two they're very minor. They're construction gaps that actually will probably be done by December. So we're in great shape.
And that was the area over there by the Oakville floodgate that they had to close off. Is that right? Okay.
That's actually not a construction gap. My understanding is that that's the way that's going to have to be. There is an access road, but it's really for personnel. The other little gap is actually in Bayou Signet, but that's also just, practically closed, or it is fully closed, and within a few months it'll be completely operational without needing to take any interim measures.
And Ms. McClay, one last question. When do you think that they will be closing the Western Closure Complex, or have they already done that just now, or?
Okay, they started it a while ago. I haven't got word that I suspicion it is by now probably totally closed.
Okay. So y'all started that, I guess, about 45 minutes ago then?
Yeah, we got word about 8 o'clock that they were going to start closing it, and last I heard it was well underway. So I'm sure if it's not closed by now, it will be within the next half hour.
And Susan McClay, is there anything else that you wanted to add or emphasize to the residents here who are listening to us or watching us from the West Bank?
Well, I've been telling everyone that I was so confident in the system. I have a son at UNO. He stayed at his apartment on the East Bank, and my husband and my 2 dogs are, in our house over in Harvey. So if my family stayed, we have a lot of confidence in the system.
Fabulous. All right, Susan McClay, thank you so much for joining us, president of the Southeastern Louisiana Flood Protection Authority, again on the West Bank there, and pretty much almost complete there for those closure complexes that they've been working on, as she said, for 50 years now. So that's definitely some positive news. But as you mentioned, Sully, we are still following this lingering storm, and I know it sounds like we've been redundant all morning talking about how slow moving this thing is. And I think Damon showed a really great picture of that 6-hour time lapse for us, where it did not move for 6 hours. I mean, you could draw a circle in the middle of it, and it just stayed smack dab right over southeast Louisiana.
What's so frustrating about it. It is kind of like a snail pace of a storm. It's just lingering like a leech and won't let go. All right. I guess we're going to get a report from Fletcher Mackel with the latest on Lafitte, where he was. Let's take a listen to that.
All right, thank you all very much. Joined now by Councilman Chris Roberts. An assessment, we just left Lafitte. The water is coming up a little bit, but it's not flooded. You said it's because the wind direction right now is pushing it away from the town, but that could change this afternoon, tonight, early tomorrow morning.
Actually, that started to change already. We saw that a little earlier this morning, that the wind direction had changed. We're getting reports that the tide is actually coming up about a foot every hour, and that's to be expected. As the storm moves off to our west, the water's now coming up out of the Gulf. It's going to push into Barataria Bay and Bayou Barataria, and that's where our concerns are going to start with the coastal communities.
How is Grand Isle doing? I think everybody's always concerned about Grand Isle. We know they got hammered. We talked to you last night before we went to bed for a little while, and then you dealt with a fire. How are they doing in your last update with Mayor Carmidale?
They had about 5 feet of water over most of the island. When the storm passed them, they started to get water from both sides, and that started to flood them. They were having some issues with some of the new buildings that they have down there from water leakage and things of that nature. They were out of power totally. They were trying to do some checks on residents that had chosen to stay in Grand Isle to make sure that they were okay. He was working with the fire chief there and some of his city employees. We're going to try and get back in touch with him as soon as we can. The phone service has been very sketchy, and we knew that was going to happen. They were reporting that they did have some structural damage to structures, although minor, nothing to the degree where you were losing entire structures. But definitely winds stronger than what they anticipated seeing, and for a much longer period of time, because basically that storm sat there for a while. They were right in the eye wall, and they were catching it for several hours.
And just final question here, how's the rest of Jefferson Parish doing? I know you told us last night Mr. Lagasse was handling the East Bank, and you're handling the West Bank as the councilman at large. How is the East Bank of Jefferson Parish doing, not counting the low-lying areas?
We were averaging about an inch of rain every hour, which is something that we feel we can somewhat keep up with. We were receiving reports of some standing water in roads because we were getting a lot of rain. We're receiving some reports now of wind damage as well. Even with a Category 1 storm, when you stay in those type of winds for several hours, sooner or later it's going to start to cause havoc. So we're hearing reports of fences down, of trees down, obviously, because the ground's so saturated. A lot of power poles down. Most areas without power, also without cable television. So some people may be cut off from even knowing what's going on right now. However, not devastating flooding, and that's good news. And we suspect with inside the hurricane protection system, we were gonna make out fairly well. So far, that seems to hold true, despite the fact that this has just been a prolonged, very long event. It's highly unusual to see this type of wind and these conditions for such a long period of time.
And it's not over yet. Chris Roberts, we appreciate your time. All right, thank you so very much. All right, back to you all in the studio.
Okay, one of the biggest issues that we've been following all morning long, again, the situation happening right now in Braithwaite, and that is where we find Travers Mackel, who has been there live for us pretty much all morning long. He actually came back here, filed a report, went back out as they're rescuing people.
And Travers, with this massive rescue effort going on right now, before you said about a half a dozen folks you've seen being rescued. Any more? What's the progress out there?
No, I tell you what, the wind is strong, as you can see. This is a live picture. You can see water coming out of the floodgate right there. That's protecting the rest of Plaquemines Parish. you can see that this is sorry, I'm getting knocked around by the wind, but that is a live picture. That is a live look at Braithwaite right there. So,
Travis, can you tilt down just a little bit?
Did I what?
Can you tilt the camera? Yeah, right there. Perfect. Well, tilt it down just a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no.
There you go.
So it's a live look at Braithwaite, and
We can tell you're braving some elements out there as the camera's continuing to shake. We see the wind is blowing and howling out there. Video looks a little bit shady, but we can still see. So tell us what the progress is out there.
Yeah, I mean, the progress is they're still rescuing people. I'm trying to duck behind the SUV here, but you can see that is Braithwaite. It is a scary sight. That looks like St. Bernard after Hurricane Katrina, and all the video that we showed you. There's a shrimp boat that came untied and is just floating around clearly. I'm going to pan to the right here. And that's where they're doing rescue attempts. They don't want us going further than this because that's the National Guard and the Sheriff's Office doing rescue attempts, trying to get people. They told us they just sent 2 truckloads down to rescue people from the ferry landing, and anybody who decided to stick around Braithwaite is being taken, or they're trying to get them to the ferry landing by boat, and then they're busting them out or riding them out in vehicle right there. I just talked to Jimmy Pullman, the sheriff. He told me that they have 2 vehicles that they're using to drive down to the ferry landing and try to get people out after they get them by boat. But you can see this water, how choppy it is. I mean, this is a dangerous operation, if you will. This is not clear skies and they're rescuing people. This is a situation where the wind is whipping probably 40 or 50 miles an hour, and on top of that, there's a lot of rainfall. The conditions are not good out here to do these rescue efforts. We all remember after Hurricane Katrina, there's a military truck leaving right here. I don't know if there are any people rescued on that truck or not. Let's see, I'll follow it as they leave. It does look like people are in the back with towels on. So, yes, it does look like there are people on that truck who were rescued from Braithwaite.
Can you give us a guesstimate as to how many people you think may have been rescued already?
20 so far is my guesstimation. 12 to 20 so far. The sheriff told us he didn't know how many people were out there. And I apologize. What we're streaming with here is getting wet, so I know it's not the best quality, but it is a live look of what's going on here in Plaquemines Parish. We're going to bring you a couple of more stories coming up. Me and Blake Hansen both did some more in-depth stuff that you'll be seeing probably in the next half hour, but it is
Hey, Travers, can you hold on for us a moment? Hold that shot for us really quickly. We've got Jay talking about the latest track with the storm, so just hang on, hang tight, and keep that picture for us. We want to still look at Braithwaite while Jay's talking.
Right, as you continue to look at this picture coming to us from Travers Mackel out there in the field, the latest update to 10 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center. I'll get right to it. Bit of good news. 75-mile-per-hour winds. That is a reduction in wind speed from 80, now 75. That puts it at 1 mile per hour above a hurricane. So Isaac continues to slowly, ever so slowly weaken as he continues to move ever so slowly to the northwest, still at only 6 miles per hour. But the good news here is that Isaac is on the move slowly, but his winds have decreased by 5 miles per hour. Current wind speeds right now at 75 miles per hour. That is the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center.
All right, thanks for that latest update, Jay. Let's go back to Travers. Travers, I'm just curious to know, you said the last group of people rescued, you said they had towels over them. Did you get a chance, by any chance, to see the victims who were rescued, and can you describe that for us?
I didn't, but I'm going to get closer to this truck here, so maybe we can all look at it live right here and get a better description of what we're looking at. You can see the boat down there, and you see the military Humvee coming towards me. I see some soldiers sitting on the top. These may have been some of the guys who performed the rescue operation. I don't know if anybody was rescued, but let's get a close shot here. Yeah, it looks like these guys performed the rescue operation. And just to let you know where we are, that's the Mississippi River, and that is the west bank of Plaquemines Parish over there. This is the east bank of Plaquemines Parish right here. I don't know if you can make out that piece of heavy machinery that's completely submerged. I mean, that is not a small piece of machinery out there. And then you have this shrimp boat that kind of floated. We don't know where it came from, but it's right here in Braithwaite, and it's would be on the middle of LA 39 right now. And look, you can see them. I think they're putting, I don't know how far you can see down there, Randy, but they are putting another boat in the water. You're looking at this live down there, Stella. They are putting, it looks like the sheriff's office is putting another boat or attempting to put another boat in this water. And just so you know, they're putting it on LA 39. I mean, this is reminiscent of Katrina when, you know, we all hopped on police boats and captured the rescue attempts when we were driving boats down Elysian Fields and places like that. They are backing that boat onto LA 39 right now, and they are going to they're going to essentially navigate it down what would normally be a street, a major Louisiana highway, the only way really into Braceway.
Travers, were you able to actually speak to anybody who was rescued? I know we see them, but were you or Blake Hansen able to catch up with one of them to tell us their story?
We called one or two, and they said they didn't want to talk, and the sheriff's department got them to the military truck very, very quickly. So we didn't get too many comments with them. We're going to try to get some more here as people get pulled out of here, though. So you can see them there. That's exactly what they're doing. It looks like they are they're testing the waters, if you will, no pun intended. It looks like they're trying to see how choppy it is before they put that boat actually in the water to go rescue. The tidal surge is pushing it right at him. And just so you guys know, Randy and Stella, this is 20-foot high water. I got to move out the way because the car that I was kind of sheltering behind, I believe, is leaving right here. So
this is 20 feet, you say?
What's that?
This is 20 feet high, the water?
Just to let you know, I'm at 20 feet right now.
Okay, you were at 20 feet.
That's the top of the gate, right. I'm at 20 feet right now. That is that's the top of the levee wall right there, 20 feet. So I'm at about 18 feet, I would guess. And the water is, I would say, 10 feet. So if I had to make a rough estimation, I would say 10 feet. And like I said, you're looking at right here. Okay, that's the levee wall. And what's amazing, I mean, this is a great shot right here. You can see on the left, the St. Bernard side, no flooding. On the right, and I know my shot is not the greatest right now, it's fogging up, but on the right is massive flooding.
Travers, I have a quick question for you. You said about half a dozen people being rescued. It sounds like a massive rescue operation going on out there. Did you say 10 military trucks out there? And can you talk about the personnel and the manpower involved in this effort?
Sure. They probably, I would say, have, I'm letting you look at it right now. I'm going to walk back in that direction. Well, I just lost the WTSU cap, so that's not good. I'll have to get another one.
I'm sure
it's in the Mississippi River now, but that's unfortunate. But there's a big military
We'll not send you in the water to go rescue that.
Right, I'm not jumping in to go after it.
Oh, hey, quick question for you too, Travers. Have you heard anything about any of the lower portions of St. Bernard Parish, for instance? Because I just got a message from, I think we lost Travers out there, unless he can still hear us.
I can still hear you, yes.
Okay, question for you. Have any of the officials, I know that you've been speaking to a lot of folks with St. Bernard who are assisting over there in Plaquemines Parish right now. Speaking to a gentleman, BJ, who's telling me that his dad is